I do okay?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting for Monday, July 11th, 2016. Mr. Clerk, could you leave us in the pledge of flag?
Absolutely. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd ask that you all remain standing. Please be advised that Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker has ordered that the United States flag and the Commonwealth flag be lowered to half-staff at all state buildings effective immediately for a period of 5 days until sunset on Tuesday, July 12, 2016, in honor of the 5 fallen officers in Dallas, Texas. Also advise that the flag will be lowered to half-staff at all state buildings from sunrise until sunset on Friday, July 1st, 2016, in order of Petty Officer 2nd Class Andrew Clement, United States Navy of Beverly, Mass., who passed away on June 21st, 2016. Moment of silence, please. Thank you. All right, we've got a jam-packed agenda tonight, so we're going to really have to keep on time, so we're not here till 10 o'clock at night. So what's on the docket? 6:30, organization, pledge of allegiance, read mail. 6:35, town board appointments, couple of these, finance committee, PMBC, and cultural council. 6:58, highway department, 2 items, award contract for sidewalk tractor, as well as highway superintendent engineering staffing vacancy review. Then at 7:10, public input and member updates. 7:15, joint meeting with the Housing Authority to fill a vacancy. 7:30, public hearing on open space and recreation plan for submission to State's Division of Conservation Services. 8 is a public hearing for an all-alcoholic restaurant license for Tavern on the Square. 8:15, several items under Town Administrator, Assistant Town Administrator for Finance and Budget, including Mill Pond Restoration, NCOG, NMCOGE, Sealer of Weights and Measures contract, land grant application, that's for the Joyce Williams property, FY16 year-end transfers, Gusti, Hingston & Co. audit contract extensions, that's our auditors, and last one is finance and administration succession reorganization plan. 8:45 is other business, which is rescheduling the Selectmen's FY17 goal-setting exercise, and minutes approval, and then finally, we will jump out to executive session for litigation strategy on Pacelli versus the town of Littleton. Okay, so next up is mail. Mr. Bergman.
Madam Chair, a few items. First, we can report on some grants that were awarded in late June by MassDOT, the Mass Department of Transportation. We received funding for a new van for the Council on Aging, so congratulations to Pamela Campbell for putting that application in. And also, Littleton is one of the 5 communities in Crosstown Connect, also is sharing in some additional grants that were also awarded for dispatch services to Crosstown Connect, $85,000, and $41,000 on a project for utilizing existing COA vans to help provide so-called last-mile trips to and from train stations. So we're very pleased to have that additional state funding available. And also I've included in here, we received letters of resignation from 2 members of the Sustainability Committee, Jack Applebaum and Tracy Cutter. Both were original members of the committee, appointed some years ago. Jack, in particular, was one of the first people I met here back in 2007. When I arrived, he was chairing the Littleton chapter of Massachusetts Climate Action Network, and has been a consistent supporter of sustainability projects in town. So we want to thank both Jack and Tracy for their service on the Sustainability Committee.
Okay, very good. So next up, and we're pretty much on time, town board appointments. So last time we met, last two times, I guess, put together, we heard from all the candidates for all the committees. But we didn't have a full board to actually make the appointments. So now we're here to actually make the appointments. And let's see, cultural council is up first. So, one position, one applicant, Mark, who we heard from, we saw earlier.
Yeah, let's hear.
Board, any discussion or any motion?
Just my apologies to the candidates and to the board for not being able to attend the last meeting, which would have allowed us to vote on these appointments. So I appreciate your patience and allowing me the pleasure of attending my daughter's graduation, and wish I could have been here to make the decisions, so I wouldn't have prolonged it. But I do appreciate the board holding off on the vote. I was able to watch the recording thanks to LCTV and see the interviews, and I've received a number of letters from folks in support of different candidates. So all of that will be taken into account. At least I can speak for myself, and I'm sure that the other board members are following the same vein.
Very good, thank you.
So thank you.
Mark just came back in.
Okay, we're on cultural council.
All right.
Okay, so, thanks for that. Okay. Any other discussion or one-on-one motion?
All right, I'd move that the Board of Selectmen vote to appoint Mark Turvo to the term on the Cultural Council, a term expiring June 30th, 2019.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
So you don't gonna ask me any questions?
Oh, we drilled you last
We
time.
drilled you last time, we know who you are.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
And
Thank you, Mark.
appreciate you,
Thanks so much.
you
I
know,
will state that, if I can, because I had prepared just quickly, that I think the cultural council is a good fit for me, unlike overreaching myself on finance. The cultural council sponsors, as I'm aware, a few concerts, some of the concerts in town, and being a musician also, I feel it bridges my interests, and that I'd be a good fit for that council for that reason.
Fantastic.
Thanks for stepping up.
wonderful.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, FinCom.
One second.
Oh,
Mark?
sorry.
Schwab really has to get sworn in.
Oh, yeah. Mark, you'll need to see town clerk to get sworn in. So,
Okay, tomorrow morning probably?
absolutely.
Whatever works for you.
Yeah. Stop by.
So make an appointment, or just-
You just
Stop
show
by,
up.
Yeah. Thank you. Good.
Sorry.
That's great. Okay, next up is FinCom. So here we have the pleasure of 3 qualified applicants for one member, one open position, sorry. Okay, discussion, board.
Well, I think we've heard from all the candidates. I know where I'm leaning towards. I think, for me, Mr. Wilson would be a change. And he did very well on his interview. I think his career in the government would be very helpful on the FinCom. That's the only comment I have.
I'll concur with Mr. Carr. I agree with all those who have stated that Mr. Hinckley and Mr. Tarbox have great qualifications. They have served the town well. But to Mr. Carr's point, I think that Mr. Wilson does offer a new perspective, a different voice, someone who definitely is going to bring some experience that we haven't tapped into in the past. And I think that he'd be a good addition to that committee.
Any other thoughts?
I've had the pleasure of serving with both Chris and Brian on 2 different committees. All 3 candidates offer good and very worthy backgrounds that would be helpful to the Finance Committee, but having recently just left the Finance Committee, happy to report that I don't think there's any glaring skill set that they're lacking. We got a lot of experience, and we got a variety in the backgrounds there. I didn't really know Mr. Wilson that well before the interview, excuse me, I do know who he is, but I got his name wrong. But I thought he captured the spirit of what we try to do at the Finance Committee, or what we try to do collectively with the budget process, pretty well in his stated approach to things. We worked and have worked very successfully on having a cooperative consensus budget process arrived at openly, and we try to get buy-in from all the boards, Finance Committee, Selectmen, School Committee, and I think he has the best prospect of working productively in that established norm.
I think these choices aren't easy when you have quality people come in to apply for positions. You know, from the interviews we had, I know with Mr. Tarbox, he hit it right in the head as far as I was concerned when he talked about team. We have to work together no matter what the groups are. Mr. Hinckley and I agree entirely on certain parts of where we should be heading as far as pensions and benefits. If we don't get control of that, then OPED will never get caught up. But Mr. Wilson did answer one thing that was one of the key things I was going for. Is it a policy board or is it an advisory board? And he basically said, you know, it's an advisory board. I mean, there's policies that within the board they have to take care of, but that was what I was looking for. So was Mr. Wilson in favor?
Okay, well, I can't disagree with anything that you guys have said and look for a motion.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to appoint Gary Wilson to a term on the Finance Committee for a term expiring June 30th, 2019.
17.
Oh, sorry, 17.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Yeah, I mean, just a general.
Oh, sorry, we know who you are, but
Yeah, I didn't hear one positive from Mr. Wilson, I just heard like general things. Is you folks elaborate on positives, assets, or what he's gonna bring to the board that we don't currently have, because I believe he's coming in at a beginner level. As we all know, we're facing large projects, alumni field, a new fire station, a new library. Is now the time for someone that's coming with no experience at a beginner level, that has prior experiences in human resources at the federal government level? I mean, I don't see the positives of that for the town, myself.
I don't think that's an accurate description of his record as been submitted in writing or as he presented in his interview. He's got 25 years' experience managing multi-million-dollar federal contracts. But I think also what he conveyed, what you just conveyed, is while we try to work on thorny issues with like the school department on points of disagreement, how we go about that is just as important as having the right facts. And I think when I was here listening to Gary answer his questions, I was convinced that he had the skills to make that work rather than just put an argument on the table.
I don't understand, make what work though, Paul? He's coming with no knowledge of anything. He's starting from scratch. We've got a lot of things on our horizon financially. Our town is growing.
I don't think that's,
We've got many projects on the horizon that I think needs an advanced skill set on the Finance Committee. My past on the Finance Committee, I've worked well as a team member. As they said at the last meeting, I would not, it would have been their approval for me not to be, less than a year ago when I was voted off. They would have voted to support me to keep me on. So that never came out last year. Here we are a year away from that, and they're still supporting me. I work great with them the whole time, as you were well aware of. So the team player thing was there.
Yeah.
The advanced skill set that I come in at is currently not on the Finance Committee at all.
Okay.
So that's what I think I bring to the table, as opposed
well,
to.
the Finance Committee and recommendations didn't single out any of the candidates, and it's the first time I remember any applicant singling out another applicant by name for criticism. That's a first too, so I don't think,
Criticism with what?
well, what you
Okay.
just, well, I think it's
I'm
evident.
sorry, and Chris,
Spilled milk.
you do bring a lot of skills to the table. I totally agree, but
That's where I'm coming from.
that's the decision of the board.
We've got one member, Greg, that's looking to go to training now to become what it is to be, what the role is to be a Finance Committee member.
Understand.
So, again, I don't
Which
think
is something
that's-
we've all done, Chris. You did it, I
Oh,
did
yeah,
it
but
as well.
his background as a UPS salesman.
He's got
Okay.
an
All right.
MBA. Now, you're
Right, but
belittling
his
somebody else,
background's not in
too.
the finance and accounting of the budget, so that's why he's going to learn that role and learn the state law and state finance.
Okay, all right, we're gonna have to move on, because the approach is part of it. Is part of it.
Consistency.
Thank you, and, yeah. Okay. All right, moving on to another tough one, PMBC. Again, one position with 3 applicants.
Well, I started off last time, I'll start off this time. Again, we heard from all 3 applicants, good applicants. I think any one of the 3 would be very good for the PMBC. But myself, knowing Rich Crowley and his background with construction and having been on the planning board and the PMBC, that's who I would look to reappoint.
Well, it would be a point, right, because he,
Yes, appoint. Appoint.
Any other thoughts?
I'll offer that, I have great admiration for Rich, like him, and I appreciate all the work he's done. And I serve right now with him on the master plan committee, which is one of his responsibilities from the planning board that he serves on. And I think he's got a lot on his plate. I'm not surprised he says he can handle more, but I also think that we'd be well served to get somebody else involved whenever we can. And then specifically to the other 2 candidates, Mr. Nixon has a unique set of qualifications, giving the biggest project on the table for us right now. He's a former deputy fire chief, and he just retired from the construction trades, and we're building a fire station in the next year. So I think that's a important consideration, and I'd be leaning in his direction.
That's Joe?
It's a toss-up. I'm listening to what other people say right now.
I'll say that I served on the PMBC as member of the school committee with Mr. Crowley, and I think that Rich offered an awful lot. I think, Paul, you kind of alluded to it, that Rich is such a wealth of knowledge, and he's got so many skills in so many areas, but he is spread pretty thin, both in volunteering for the town as well as in his profession. And the last point that you made relative to Mr. Nixon's experience relative to the fire department, with that project coming on board with his 40 years of experience with carpentry and general contractor, or general foreman, it would help to kind of keep an eye on that project. It's a appointment until 2019.
Yes.
So I think that I'd be leaning more towards Mr. Nixon for this one, and I think that Rich will always be a resource that's available to us. He's going to be involved very heavily with the master plan update and with the planning board. And I think the PMBC would be wise to reach out to him and look for his assistance if in fact we did appoint Mr. Nixon this evening.
Yep, and speaking of which, we did get a recommendation from PMBC for Mr. Nixon. Joe?
Once again, I know all the candidates well, and although I understand exactly what you guys are saying, it's hard to ignore all the qualifications Mr. Crowley puts forth, and that's where I'm leaning right now.
Yeah. This is a tough one.
The PMBC did vote
They did.
to recommend Mr.
Mr.
Nixon.
Nixon.
Well,
Didn't even know that.
From my perspective,
When did they make that vote?
didn't they? They sent us a recommendation.
But
They did?
I know nothing.
Oh, maybe it's just the chairman sending me an email. Never mind. I apologize. I don't know. Did we get a recommendation from them?
Never saw one in writing.
I don't recall that we did.
I apologize. I take that back. Back in the record.
Chairman's here if he wants to.
Where is he?
Joe's
Did you guys make a formal recommendation, Joe, on the candidate as a team, like voted?
has the PMBC made a vote, Joe? Has the PMBC taken a vote for a recommendation?
No,
Okay, I apologize.
we
Apologies.
decided not to. We feel that the qualifications speak for themselves, and also, you know, the attendance record speaks for itself.
Well, I think, I mean, qualifications, man. When I look at Mr. Crowley's resume, it's probably one of the most decorated resumes I've ever seen. So that's a tough one, that the qualifications will speak for themselves, because it's not a wash there for me. And Mr. Hinckley also has very good experience as well, so there's no clear, front runner for me. Anyway, it's not obvious. That being said, I have dealt with Mr. Crowley, fully supportive of him. I tend to agree, he's in a lot of different things, but if he's kind of raising his hand to say, I want to do this, then, I'd lean towards supporting him, because he is, always there when he can as a town. It's a tough.
Can I say one thing, Vice Chairman of the PMBC? We need a person that's going to be there. Mr. Nixon has said that he would be there. Mr. Crowley has missed, I think his presence is like 40% over the last 2 years. The general consensus of the
He's also been
PMBC is that we'd be in favor of Mr. Nixon.
Okay, I understand. And I do know that Mr. Crowley did advise he was sick for several months, which incapacitated him to attend, and that, that's something that can happen to all of us. So you just have to take that in consideration as well. But I know that there was other things there.
Madam Chair. But just to reconfirm, there was no official vote by the PMBC.
No official vote.
Make a nomination.
additional comment.
Make a nomination.
Madam Chairman? If you look at what's happening in FY17, we've got a tremendous schedule. And we need people to be at the meeting. And Rich misses too many meetings, and he doesn't pick up any of the ball. He comes in and he submits, he agrees to do something, and then it doesn't happen. I've picked up personally, says the chairman, I've had to pick up 2 projects in the last 6 months because they weren't done. So we either have to have someone that's there, or we're not going to be able to take care of what the town's expecting us to do over the next 12 months.
And I would fully expect that any candidate that we'd appoint would be there. They understand the time commitment, and they would be there.
My only comment, if I may, to hear how strong you guys feel and not have a vote just doesn't make sense to
Yeah,
me.
that's a little strange.
Just doesn't make sense to me. If you feel this strong and you want to make recommendations, why didn't your entire board make a recommendation? Because we had one member who really felt strongly that we shouldn't make a recommendation. And the committee said, okay, if that's the way you feel, we're not going to go fight one member. Okay.
I'd just like to say in Mr. Crowley's defense, not as a lawyer, but for him not to be here when this.
That's also true.
Not fair at all.
You're
And
correct. That's a good
so
point,
I
yeah.
think we should, yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah. He can't be here tonight,
Not a fair
unfortunately.
process, period.
Okay. All right. That being said, look for a motion. I don't know what to do here.
I'll make a motion to appoint Rich Crowley to the PMBC for the term expiring 2019. June 30, 2019.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay or no? Sorry.
No.
You guys have it. Okay.
Mr. Crowley. Mr. Crowley?
Sorry, yes.
Okay. I have resignation tomorrow.
All right. This has been fun. All right, moving right along. Number 3.
I believe it was Louis XIV who said, every time I make an appointment, I create one
Vacancy?
ingrate and a dozen malcontents.
Yeah, that's a good quote,
No
actually.
vacancy.
Yeah, another vacancy.
Yeah, another vacancy, exactly. Okay. All right, we have to move on. 6:50 and we're almost on time here. So we are looking at 2 highway department items. First one is awarding a contract for sidewalk tractor, which is something that was on the annual town meeting. So now it's about awarding the contracts. I don't know, Jim or Keith, you want to give us an update?
Basically a replacement for an item that we have. Trade in and get a new one.
One that got in an accident, crash?
Nope.
I mean, Jim?
Stays up straight.
This is a tire one though, huh? Not trackless, no tracks?
It's wheels. They both have their advantages and disadvantages. And we're going with the same brand because we have a bunch of attachments that will fit on it, and they're basically specific to that machine.
Nice.
It served us well. It's a good machine.
Nice. State contract, no issues? Love that. Doesn't that make your life easy, huh?
Love that.
Ready for a motion?
Indeed.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Article 7 of the May 2nd, 2016 Annual Town Meeting to approve award a contract in the amount of $143,800 to C.N. Wood Company, Inc. of Woburn for the purchase of a new trackless MT6 tractor with accessories for the Highway Department.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, it's a little under budget, isn't it? Under budget. That's good. Okay. All right, good. Next up, for the Highway Department, another exciting topic. Staffing vacancy review, Highway Superintendent, intendant/engineer. Okay, Keith, you want to take us through this?
This, I think, is here for a board discussion and some policy direction that, in a meeting that Bonnie and I had with the chair, with the incoming and outgoing chairs, about a month or so ago, we were of the understanding that the vacancy to be filled for the highway department head should be a highway superintendent engineer, or rather, more correctly, that the position of engineer should be established as the highway department head.
Which it was in the past, previously.
And which it was pre-2007. I know that when I arrived here in 2007, that the structure had just changed. It was the engineer was the head of the department, and that operations manager was the number 2. That position was made, I think, part-time or phased out, and the previous incumbent had retired. This is on the agenda for discussion tonight because because since the time on June 7th that I had sent out to Bonnie a staffing vacancy review, a determination that the position could be filled as a highway superintendent engineer, per our discussion with the chairs, that there was some concern expressed by other members that may not have been what the common understanding was of how the engineer position ought to get filled. So in deference to the board, to be able to have a policy discussion about that, I haven't acted on this for the last month, and we've scheduled policy direction on whether the position is to be filled as number 2 or number 1 in the highway department.
If I may, Matt. I raised this with Keith because it came as a complete surprise in my mail packet to have this information. I had never seen it before, never heard about it before. And I went back through the minutes, and we have the minutes. Matter of fact, you made the motion to have a full-time engineer position open, and it was voted 5-0. So there was nothing ever said about making this new position. I understand budget-wise it's neutral, so I guess the board doesn't have to go through this process, but I just thought it was probably not a proper way of doing it, because, I mean, well, all of a sudden you get in the mail packet, there's a new position there that most of the board didn't know about.
So what was the vote? It was 5-0 for the,
To have an engineer.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I've got a few problems with this as well. Last year, while on the Finance Committee, only became aware, the committee, that, the selectmen were adding a engineer back into the budget, and, that it was covered under the balanced budget. And as usual in the budget process, I defer to the selectmen for priority on policy. Well, I'm here now, so I get to voice my opinion on it as a matter of policy. I have not seen the need for the engineer position in-house. In fact, I think there's recent documentable history where we did exactly the same thing and it didn't yield the results we thought it would. But it boggles my mind that every fall we get the same lecture about the state of the budget and where we're going to be in years going forward. And there's always two consistent factors. One is that revenues are flattening out, and two, that they do not keep up with personnel costs. And the last thing we want to do is add expensive mid-level or add positions, because they impact us forever in the OPEB costs, and they also impact us at a rate that surpasses our growth in revenue. And yet, whatever problem is perceived here, the answer to it is to initially not only create a new position as an engineer, but then somehow between when that was approved and now, that's grown to being a superintendent, which displaces Mr. Clyde, which I feel very uncomfortable with. I don't know, how much of that's been discussed with him. It certainly hasn't been discussed amongst the board members. It's a distinct change in the management of that department. And as I say, we did this once before. We went out and hired an engineer under the full-time engineer under the suggestion that, gee, we're spending so much money on engineering, if we bring an engineer in-house, we won't do that anymore. Well, it didn't happen. We got a good engineer. He ended up becoming head of the department, and we were still hiring out for engineer work. So you had an engineer in-house that said, yep, that needs engineering work, but I'm too busy to do it. We got to, go out and I don't think we're going to solve our problem, and I don't think we've really followed a very transparent process for this, and I just think we ought to put the brakes on this and go back to square one as to what brought us to this point in the first place. What was the problem we were trying to solve?
I think to that point, I think the spirit of what we're trying to do here, the workload of the highway department is intense, obviously, and Mr. Clyde does an amazing job working 20 hours a day. And so the spirit here is to get help and to really, make a delineation and a manageable workload for those two roles now. And so that's one part. So that's the spirit of where we were headed. To that point, though, let's get it on the table. Let's talk it through, like you're saying. And
But is help best by having a laborer in the field or a mid-level manager, in the office?
Bouncing on what Paul said, I think the board at that time agreed that budget-wise, in our opinion, and opinion through Bonnie and everyone else, was that we probably would be saving money by doing this. I guess I share something you said, Paul, too. I says, I don't see anything that in the past that required a new management team when we got a highway team department that's functioning perfectly well the way it is. I just thought we were adding an engineer to help out. So that's why the highway, I'm not going along with what you said as far as, not creating that position. I voted to add the position.
I'm opposed at two levels.
Yeah.
I'm opposed at the engineer period, then I'm certainly opposed at the management structure change.
Because I have no problem with it. I don't think we've had anyone come to us and say, there's a problem there that needs to be solved. Maybe I think Jim's doing a fantastic job. And I don't know what this board has informally, I haven't asked Jim about this at all, but I don't know whether we should bring him into the conversation or not. I don't agree with what we're doing.
Is he comfortable having that conversation?
yes, would you be willing to share your thoughts on
Yeah,
this?
I'm the one that's been complaining because I can't sustain this kind of lifestyle. You're killing me, absolutely killing me. I work about 60 hours a week. I can't shut it off no matter what happens because I take everything personal. I've been complaining for 3 years. I need some help down there. And I disagree with you. Eric did a fantastic job when he was here. If you want to come down and look through the files of how many plans he did do that have his name on them, I'll show you. He did a great job for this town. He got us squared away from old school. And we are spending a lot of money with the engineers now. They do a great job for us. And, you know, we're spending the money, but there's a lot that goes on down there because we're on our own, no one sees it. You know, I'm dying a slow death.
Structurally, structurally, would you prefer to see the engineer just come in and take care of the engineering stuff? Or do you prefer to go forward the way that it's been proposed, with the engineer being the number one and you being the number two?
This was sort of a curveball to me. I thought we were doing, the engineer was under me or beside me, or whatever you want to call it, and then this seemed like a curveball to me. I mean, I've come to agree with what's going on because I'm sick of it. I mean, this has been going on for 3 years. You ought to see my pill case at home with all the pills I take. You know, I'm not going to last much longer. I need help. Maybe we don't think you do. I mean, we put on a good show, I guess.
You definitely do.
So he needs administrative help, right? Is that what you're saying, Nate?
Chris,
If I may.
Yes, please.
Just correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I'm hearing, you'd prefer to be the number one guy, have the engineer come in, as was voted on, 5-0 by this board, and move forward in that capacity.
That was before. Now I'm satisfied with being the number 2 guy.
Now, beyond that, if I may, beyond that, I think you're being conservative when you say you work 60 hours a week, but would you say that, I mean, this position isn't replacing Danny,
No.
so do you think where you're at right now as far as staff is concerned, if we were to go forward with this position as the engineer or as the number one, either way, do you think that's gonna help to get you to where you need to be?
We still have, we're filling 2 of the vacant positions out of the 3, not counting the engineer. We're down 3 employees right now, that from the current staffing level that we had. So one of them is the general foreman position, and a lot of this has been in limbo until what happens here.
Right.
Right, that's another time-sensitive piece. I know you and I spoke about that. We need to, you know, if we
I know
don't,
it's gonna be 90 degrees, but snow's coming.
right, you're already planning those type of things. So whatever we gotta do, I think we need to do it quickly here, if possible. Wanna do it
So,
the right way, but-
if I may?
Please.
So Jim, if we move forward with this position as presented, Ian, you have your 3 vacancies filled. I know you'll be a lot happier, but is there, based on the report that was done, where are you sitting now, staff-wise?
It fills one of the positions they recommended, but still, that leaves Park
Okay.
still understaffed.
Right.
I mean, that gets highway back to
Where it should be.
reasonable.
Yeah. Okay.
And I totally know what you're saying, Mr. Glavy, about not adding, you know, additional headcount, if you will, because of the OPEB expense. Totally agree with that. Not something I like to do either. That being said, this particular department needs some help.
But specific to the cost, what's being proposed is keeping the operations manager in at his level 12, step 8, and then putting in a new manager above them at, what, another level 12 position?
Yes.
Okay, well, I just think that's irresponsible. If he needs help, he may need help underneath him, but not above him.
Bunny?
I'm going to take some liberty here, but I did have some in-depth conversations with Jim Clyde about the position, whether it should be, you know, in a position that's at a peer level with him or a supervisory position, and what was working best for him. And that was at the 2003 staffing level, which is almost 15 years ago, where Eric was our engineer at a full-time level with the superintendent title, and Jim as the operations manager, and that's what he enjoyed at that point. And I think that, I'm speaking personally as a manager with Jim, but I think that that's the best level at this point that would be met.
That helps. Thank you. Other thoughts, comments? I mean, Jim's our top guy. We all know that, but we're trying to save him,
If I can, just ask you straight out, Jim, I'm all in favor of trying to find workers to help you out. You've done such a fine job. I just, in my own mind, I was seeing as being not looking good on you, being almost like a kick in the butt, you were being put down. That's one of the reasons I was against this. I want to know exactly what would you prefer if we could do it?
Again, you guys have worn me down. I'm angry every day. I hate coming to work. So, I need some kind of relief. And I'm fine with being the number 2 guy, and hopefully we get a good director, and that's the end of that. I'm too young to retire, but it's getting awful close.
Jim, you're stating that you're fine with being the number 2 guy, but this came as, like, I think you called it a curveball. I mean, we're having this conversation tonight to determine whether or not this is the right way to go, or do we go somewhere else, to adjust this. If we move forward as presented, and you're the number 2 guy, and you're still showing up at work, and you hate your job, and you're angry, and you're stacking more pills in your pill cash, we don't want that. We want you to be healthy, we want you to enjoy coming to work. You obviously take pride in your work, and I don't think there's anybody here in town that would speak otherwise. We want to help you to get to that point where you don't hate the alarm clock in the morning.
I think that's where I need the relief to take some pressure off.
Help me out with the number 1, number 2 thing, though.
No, I'll be number 2. As I said before, number 2, I'm fine with that.
Okay. That's gonna help to get you to where,
I hope.
I'm trying to be as blunt as possible here. That's so,
And we'll have you, obviously you want to be involved in the process, in the hiring process, and through the interview panels.
I've been told that.
That's what I told Jim. I said that if he had expressed some concern, well, what if he doesn't get along with the person? And I said, well, it will be your fault as much as anyone's, because you're gonna help select that person.
Is that the norm where people hire their bosses?
It happens once in a while.
There's no norm here, I guess. That's the overriding point.
It happens
Yeah.
once in a while, yes.
I interviewed you.
Yes, you did, yes. All right, so.
so we can blame you. Just kidding, Keith.
All right, so what do we want to do here, guys?
Well, hearing from Jim, hearing his stress in his voice, knowing that he's okay with, as presented, the position as presented, I'll be more than happy to make the motion, Madam Chair.
Do we want to, I guess, I'm just trying to think of this 90 days out or something like that, or, I guess if we're going to go for it, we're going to go for it.
If Jim is waiting to make decisions on 3 other vacancies based on this decision, we're doing him a disservice on one other position, all right.
Understood. I'm just trying to think of the hierarchy more than anything. That's all.
What do you,
Just
what's you lost me on that one.
number 1, number 2, do we hold off on that for now, or
I think Jim has been, I've heard him about 4 times already.
I wasn't buying it, though. We beat him down, that's why he's okay with it. That's what I heard.
Jim and I and Bonnie and I have been talking about this for those 3 years, during which time, at any given time, Jim would say either number 1 or number 2. so that, and he's had issues about one or the other, and if, at this point, I think we would like to move forward. It's going to take some time to advertise and to fill the vacancy. We've got the job description that's in place. It includes, some significant new things like stormwater program that we need to get going on, and there's an awful lot. This whole project for the last 3 years has been about making sure that there's not too much on Jim's plate. And I think this organizational structure makes the best use of what he's best at, which is the field marshal. He's in charge of field operations. And that's what he loves about the job, and that's and this organizational structure will let him do what he does best and provide support for him where it's needed for the department.
I'll make the motion, Madam Chair.
Any other discussion?
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to authorize town administrator to fill grade 12 full-time benefited position highway superintendent/engineer effective July 1, 2016. Huh? Well, that's late.
1/2016.
So it can't be effective July 1st. When would you like the
We
effective date?
could have it be.
August 1st? September 1st?
As a practical matter,
As early as?
As early as soon as possible.
as soon as possible, is fine.
As soon as possible. Upon the finding that, hold on, that is within the FTE and budgeted level for the highway department for the fiscal year 2017 as appropriated by town meeting, and to further agree that highway operations manager Jim Clyde shall continue to be paid at fiscal year 2017, grade 12, step 8 pursuant to the personnel bylaw, subsection 32-12.
33-12. Second.
33-12, I'm sorry.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those not in favor?
No.
You guys have it.
On with it.
Okay, so we have progress, and we can't thank you enough for all the work you put in, all the hours. It's unbelievable. This man works all the time, and you do a great job, so,
But we pledged
Not the only one.
True.
to thank you enough.
yeah, your department is
Thanks, Jim.
appreciated. Thank you.
Jim.
So now you can get going on that other rec then. All right, that
Public input.
is it for highway public input, running a little bit late. Okay, start with public input. Any public input? Name and address.
Sure, Brian Tarbox, Fletcher Lane. And I promise you I won't mention any other candidates. I do have a comment though and a question. I know a number of citizens wrote in support of my candidacy, and those letters weren't read. I don't know if that's the policy not to read them, but I was kind of surprised that they weren't read. The other thing is I'm just kind of puzzled because, I wonder people told me I shouldn't even bother applying for this board because you guys would never even consider me. And it does feel like I'm kind of on a blacklist. I mean, my time on the FinCom could not have done better. We could not have a higher bond rating. The budget process, especially at town meeting, could not have gone smoother. So I'm just puzzled. Is there a possible universe where you folks would even consider my candidacy for anything? Because it feels like I could do anything for the town and you boards wouldn't even consider me. I don't feel like it was and you guys disagree, I'm sure you do, but I'm telling you that it feels like I didn't get a fair shake because in terms of evaluation, like I said, I don't know what more, maybe we could have saved the town $2 million. But so it leaves a bad feeling, and when a lot of people say, Brian, don't even apply, you're not going to get a fair shake. And I said, but I'm going to try, and I'm going to hope. And I don't know what I tell these people at this point, so it doesn't feel right. I'll just say.
Chair, for long time. Look, I've served with you twice, Brian, and I would be happy to appoint you to another committee. I think you're strengths lend to places where you can be an advocate for things, and that, there's a lot of committees where that comes into play. We even have vacancies on the committee you served on, years ago, we both served on, Economic Development. It doesn't get enough attention. You're certainly someone who can bring attention when you speak or use your various means of getting a message across. I don't encourage you to put in for positions. In this case, we had 2 out of 3 candidates that within the past year, their appointing authorities had removed them. So, I mean, that just to it wasn't stated here, but that has to factor into it too. It did with me anyway. In the Finance Committee's role, I just served on it, is mostly to try to make the whole financial picture work by working with everybody. And while I enjoyed working with you, I think both you and Chris, for whatever reasons, weren't reappointed by, the boards that last appointed you, so this didn't feel like the right thing to do at this time. And then, of course, the other candidate was very strong, too, so that it just, all the things came together. But as far as it being anything bigger than that, not for my part. I'd be happy to vote for you for a number of positions.
Very much a situational thing. And in terms of process, Keith, and reading the input, that is not part of the process, right?
It's not, no.
But we got them.
We
did, we
got
should.
them, that they're part of the record, that I was asked to forward the information to the selectmen, and I did that.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Any other public input? Ms. Hinckley?
Put my name on that blacklist as well, Brian, is, it's obvious to me, because my background all mentions, what could be a better fit for somebody on a committee. 2 decades of municipal finance experience from Air, Chelmsford, Wayland, Haverhill, and now North Middlesex, Ashby, Pepperell, and Townsend. I was very successful and had enjoyed my time on Finance Committee. We were productive and successful. We had the great bond rating. I was proactively pushing what was in the future, projecting salaries and trying to get all the numbers on the table, school department in particular. There was a lot of work that I was involved in that was directly helping the town financially, but yet it all gets pushed aside. And as Brian said, I had to go for historical commission, Mr. Smith, here you go. So, same thing. I feel like I'm on a blacklist, and I've done no wrong as far as I look at it. So,
Well, I'd echo Mr. Glavy's comments, from my perspective as well. I think you do bring a lot of great things. I've always said that, Chris. I really believe that. So I think it's a situational thing, honestly. Okay, any other input? Okay, public input. I'm going to start down this way. Member
Board
input.
input,
I know who we are.
How far this way?
We'll start with you.
Just one thing I wanted to do as a member input is just to give folks an update on where the Alumni Field Renovation Advisory Design Committee is. The RFQs have gone out. The RFQs for an OPM, which is an owner's project manager, and a design firm, they will be opened on Wednesday. The OPM will be opened at noon time, and the design firm will be opened at 1 o'clock. AFRAC, as we call the group, is meeting Wednesday evening at 7 o'clock at the police department. And we will have this Wednesday a gentleman from Tom Irwin Incorporated. It's kind of the leader in the industry relative to turf management. And when I say turf, in this case, I mean natural turf. Has done some great things at Wellesley College, has at a number of golf courses, so we're going to try to learn from them and garner from them what their opinion is relative to Alumni Field and renovating it.
That's great. And you already had one with the artificial turf expert, right?
We had,
So now this is the natural turf expert.
One of the largest manufacturer, Field Turf Corporation, came up and did a presentation a few weeks ago. It's LCTV has been airing that as well, and came up and answered a lot of questions for folks and presented different infill systems, and it was very educational. So we're moving forward. We're hopeful that by the end of next week we'll narrow down and do some interviews with some of the OPMs and the firms, and make a decision probably by the end of July on who's going to be the professionals that we hire. And a lot of progress being made. I'd like to thank everybody that's been coming out and encourage people to come out. We've actually had some well-attended meetings, and encourage people to come out and hear what Ian, I can't think of Ian's, I'm going blank on his last name, Ian from Tom Irwin will be there this week. And we're also bringing through different stakeholders, different youth organizations, LABA, Littleton Athletic Boosters Association will be in front of us, just to kind of say what stake they have in alumni being renovated. So those are some good presentations as well.
Right.
Alicia Day and Jim Clyde are both giving presentations from their perspective as stakeholders and shared with us the impact that a synthetic turf or a grass turf would have on their department. So it's been a lot of information gathering, and appreciate everybody's input.
Fantastic. Thank you. Mr. Glavy.
Nothing new this week.
Okay. Mr. Knox.
Sure there's nothing on there?
I couldn't read it.
Just one thing, third Thursday on the 21st will not be in the Common, it'll be at Fay Park, so let everyone know that if you're looking for the third Thursday and all the traffic at the Common is being moved to Fay Park, and they're having a movie there afterwards, is that true?
Got it.
Okay, so it's a first-time switch, see how it goes, and we want to thank the Park and Rec once again for continuing their hard work, and let people know.
So is that a conscious move to try a different traffic configuration,
I-
or is it a?
Just to kind of, to merge together the movie in the park and the third Thursday and see how it goes. So, inside out.
And
Exciting.
this time it actually allows
Oh, it's the movie.
Jamie Cruz to bring some animals down, which he couldn't do it before because you can't hammer things into the Common, so there'll be some added things onto it, so.
Good. Awesome. Anything else?
No.
Okay, as Mr. Carr is missing, I just have a couple of different things. Another business opened in town, Menchie's, the frozen yogurt place is open, so congratulations to them. Tomorrow night, there is a public forum on the new library. So if folks are interested in providing input into the new library conversation, again, that's tomorrow night. I'm just trying to look up where it is, but it's online.
Cooper Room,
That makes sense, actually.
7 o'clock.
That sounds about right. I don't know why it's not coming up here, but, and then Wednesday, well, actually, I shouldn't say that. So in a session soon, the selectmen will be doing their goals for the next year. So again, this is, our ears are open for input. We've heard a lot of good input. I know we've heard from the seniors in town. We've heard from, others as well, but our goal setting is coming up, so it's your chance to provide some input there. All right, what?
7 o'clock. So it's not, on Facebook, it doesn't say where.
Find that. Okay. It's definitely tomorrow
Cooper
night
Room.
somewhere.
It says
the
Cooper
Cooper
on
Room?
the town
Okay.
website. Yeah.
Okay. Good. All right, we're 2 minutes away from a public hearing, actually. We probably can't do this housing
think you
authority in
can.
2 minutes.
I
Yeah?
think you can. You
Okay.
have one candidate and you
All
have
right.
housing authority here. So
Let's do it.
I bet you can.
Very good. Housing authority. Bartlett Harvey. One candidate, one open position.
New old candidate. New old candidate.
New old
Old
candidate.
Oh, were you on there previously?
I don't think we need to do anything further in terms of interview. I'd be happy to make a motion that the Board of Selectmen and the remaining members of the Littleton Housing Authority vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 11, to appoint Bartlett Harvey to fill a vacancy in the Housing Authority through the May 2017 annual town election.
Second.
So moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Well, this is a joint
Yeah,
appointment.
it's
We
a
gotta
joint-
get
Oh,
the-
I'm sorry.
Have the housing authority here too.
Good point.
Get Gino and Millie. and-
Ah, congratulations, Gino.
How many, you got 3 of your members here, or?
Yeah,
Two.
Gino and Millie are here. Our executive
Right,
director.
all right, and then third to come on here.
1, 2.
So how does that work?
So you've got 2 members, it's the remaining members. So you've got
I know.
2 plus 4 here, so that's 6,
Okay.
7.
Need roll call or no?
The record can reflect who the members are that are here, and then it's
Unanimous.
a unanimous vote,
Assuming it is.
assuming it is,
Okay.
waiting on,
We're waiting on him?
the,
Do you want me to
I
find
don't
out?
need, yeah.
Yeah, we can vote without them.
It's 1-1.
You okay with it?
I'm sure Jimmy's with you, just not here.
Something come up, it was a phone call.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I made a motion. Does somebody from
Yeah,
the
you
Housing
could-
Authority want a second? Oh, you did.
Second,
Oh,
second.
Gino.
Hey,
Moved
Gino.
and seconded, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
6, thank you, thanks, Barlow.
Okay, time to open the
Jen, got the
public
names?
hearing.
Billy and Gino.
Jen, you got the, cool. Okay, so we've got to open the public hearing now.
Short time, we're over there, you gotta, keep an eye on her.
Okay. So Jim usually reads this, doesn't he?
I'll do it.
Thank you.
Littleton Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Monday, July 11, 2016, at 7:30 PM, room 103, Littleton Town Offices, 37 Shattuck Street, Littleton, Mass. 01460, on the proposed open space and recreation plan prepared by the Open Space and Recreation Plan Implementation Committee with assistance from the Metropolitan Area Planning Council for submission of said plan to the Division of Conservation Services. The draft plan is available online at littletonma.org/open space recreation plan. Comments thereon may be submitted in writing to the Office of the Board of Selectmen, Town Administrator, Town of Littleton, 37 Shattuck Street, Littleton, Mass. 01460, by noon on Friday, July 8th, 2016, or in person at the hearing. Board of Selectmen, Melissa Hebert, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, so we got an update on the open space and recreation plan. I think last time you were here.
Yeah, maybe we could have the committee sit up front, Andrew and company. They've been working so hard, ought to be on display tonight, so.
And there have been some updates since we met you in June, right?
I believe so.
Yes. At least I'm finding stuff that looks new.
Yeah, on June 20th, there was we had a draft plan in front of us which had not yet incorporated the vote that you had taken the previous week, and that has been incorporated. It also reflects some input from the board. During our discussion on June 20, or at some point, we were talking about that we ought to establish the practice of having the boards meet jointly to talk about the chapter land, 61, 61A, 61B, on at least an annual basis. So we asked the Metropolitan Area Planning Council to put together a PowerPoint presentation, in part because I was just sort of fumbling through the plan and at the last time. So with the assistance of and guidance from the committee, that MAPC has put together a slideshow that I can run through unless you.
Whatever you'd like to do.
Okay. And as we get to it, these are the sections of the plan. The plan document itself is about 100 pages, I think, and is available at the town website. And let me just back up to say that our goal is to submit the draft plan to the state agency that reviews open space and recreation plans. And frankly, to submit it by Wednesday at 3 o'clock in order that we can maintain our eligibility for a land grant, because we're also looking, that's a local acquisitions for natural diversity grant. And you can write that down, right? No more,
No, you nailed
no
it.
more acronyms.
You nailed it.
So that we want to be eligible for a grant. In order to be eligible for a land grant, it's a competitive grant offered by the State Department of Conservation Services. And that in order to be eligible, we have to have an up-to-date open space and recreation plan. The plan that we most recently had approved in 2009 technically expired in 2014. We have not submitted a land grant application since then, but we do desire to do that. In fact, the committee's been busy at least through 2014, since 2014, working on the plan. They did it as a bunch of volunteers without any staff support, and then about a year ago, we asked MAPC, the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, for DLTA, that is District Local Technical Assistance Funds, to help us put our plan together, to do the mapping and so forth. So MAPC has been working with the committee for that time. We had 2 public forums. We had one that was last summer that focused on recreation, and we had one earlier this in March, which focused on the whole plan. So there have been a number of opportunities for public input and public discussion. Our goal, though, is to submit this draft document by this Wednesday at 3 o'clock so we can get a land grant. It does not mean that that's the final version of the plan, that in fact the plan itself gets reviewed and that the state gives itself until, and us until June of 2017 to consummate what the final plan looks like. So the point would be that if there are, we would anticipate that there will be review and input from the state agency on the plan that we're submitting, and that there would also be the opportunity, if there are tweaks that we want to make in the plan during that review process, that we can do it. So voting on the plan tonight, essentially, it does what we need to do to preserve our eligibility for the grant application while it starts the process moving of state review of the plan. And we can certainly, I know there was some concern that some of the town boards that wanted to weigh in with input may not have had time to do that. They will have time to do that, and we'll be able to take their input in due course.
What is the process for that?
That, it should be to go to the continue to go to the committee itself, and that can be through our office. So input on the open space plan, open space and recreation plan can go to the Selectmen Town Administrator's office, and we will get it to the committee for their review.
So then they would propose it back to us, and we would.
Yeah, they would
accept it.
review. They're the group that you've set up to review everything. So as we get input in, we'll ship it to them, and then they will come back to us with whatever, final iterations of the plan that we have. So these are the sections of the plan. How the committee put the plan together, at least according to your consultant, was to ask what do we have, what do we need or want, analyzing what's missing or desired, and then to develop goals and objectives and an action plan. And so you've done that, and that you've got that, all of that stuff in the plan. Just as one indicator, and all of these maps are available online. This is what the inventory of open space and recreation properties looks like as of right now. If anyone finds any errors, that we've got something there, we can still get some white out or green out and make the changes. That the action plan that the committee has adopted is also there, and I think that we may have some, it will be easier to read in this slide, the priority action items. Andrew, walk us through the list.
You want me to read them?
Yeah, go ahead.
So number 1 is protect all surface and subsurface waters. Number 2, purchase open space of interest and farmland as it comes available and stay aware of upcoming opportunities. Number 3, create and implement a comprehensive plan for maintenance, repair, and acquisition and/or construction of adequate playing field capacity for the town. Number 4, work with Finance Committee to locate available funding sources. Number 5, establish partnerships with landowners and developers to preserve valuable portions of land in exchange for expanded development opportunities. Number 6, work with local conservation commissions and land trusts from contiguous towns to identify parcels of open space which might be connected across town borders. Number 7, improve/expand parking areas near open space properties, including handicapped parking as applicable. Number 8, establish more bicycle and pedestrian routes on new and existing town and state-owned land. And finally, number 9, create a town historic or neighborhood conservation district.
So those are the goals, and then the process is, as we conclude this submission phase is if there are further comments tonight from the public hearing, those can be incorporated into the plan document. We do need to submit it by Wednesday, as I indicated. We will be working with the funding agency in reviewing their comments. Still have the opportunity to tweak the plan and submit a final document, and then to have that in place for our future eligibility. When we obtained the MAPC assistance about a year ago, one of the things that we want to focus on is to make sure that the document did as good a job in identifying recreation issues and needs as it has historically done with open space. And so that's why it's an important opportunity to not just for open space, but also for active recreation. And so that's why we've had significantly more outreach in that area now than we have in the past. And as a sort of a benediction, someone has to read that.
Okay,
You wrote this, didn't you? So it should be in your voice.
Littleton's ideal open space system would provide links between existing open space lands, whether they are owned by the town, Littleton Conservation Trust, or other entities. The connections would expand to neighboring communities, open spaces, and trails. Agriculture would be a prominent land use, helping to preserve our rural character. All ages and interests would be accommodated by a variety of recreation facilities, including sports fields and parks.
Very good. So, are we ready for input or any other updates? You good? Well, there's
We getting public input?
Yeah, public input.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see what the public has to say first, and then boards, we can comment. So, name and address, please.
Ed Mullen, 10 Grist Mill Road, also Vice Chair of the Planning Board. Excellent document. I had a chance to read it thoroughly over the weekend. We were also asked by our administrator to endorse it. After reading it, there's a few items that the Planning Board would like to edit, so we'll recommend for submission, but we do not want to endorse it at this time.
Okay, and you'll send that edits over to
Yeah,
Keith?
procedurally, that's fine, and that we get the written comments, that would be great.
So we're gonna try and incorporate that edits into the July 13th. Are you guys good with that, or you wanna see them first, or do a submission and
Sounded
then?
like you needed a board vote to
Yeah,
do it,
we need-
which will happen after
Discussion.
July
Gotcha.
13th.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're recommended for submission
Okay.
without our endorsement.
It'll be a subsequent
Gotcha.
edit to be made, post-submission.
Name and address. Gino?
Gino for Housing Authority. I just was appointed by the governor as a Housing Authority. I think at number 10, should be number 10 there, allocate some land for the housing, which is very important at the moment.
But that's
We
not
have
an open
350
space. We have a separate housing document, Gino. We have a separate
I
housing.
know, but I'm saying, he said, you stop on 9. I just want to make a comment, so you know that there is a need for housing, and that we like to allocate, the town should allocate land for the housing.
Okay.
Just to interject, put a little buzz in.
Keep beating that drum?
Yeah.
Right?
Name and address?
So
Whether it's appropriate or
so
not.
that we don't just do what's here and forget about
I
housing.
apologize.
It's all the
I
map.
came up in the wrong time.
But you know what, and the best place for all of these things to work together is the master plan update, where we've got a housing plan that we've approved, we've got our open space and recreation plan, we've got, all of our separate plans, but the key to finding the mix is gonna be the master plan update process, where they're doing a great job.
Sure. Don McGovern, 43 Foster Street. For a draft open space plan, it's great. You have a good committee, good consultant. There are some things I've noticed that I've only seen it in pieces. It's online. I'd hope after it gets submitted on the 13th and you're expecting boards to comment, you would have hard copies as well as a 100-page document.
You can print it off the website.
Yeah, we'll do we have electronic copies.
Well, yes, and I'm saying it'd be nice to have a hard copy so they can make some notes and so on. It would help. yeah, after you submit on the 13th, if you're expecting comments and endorsements. One of the things that I was sort of surprised it wasn't there was a listing of the Chapter 61 properties. And, yeah, there's certainly been requests from the Finance Committee, I think, from your committee, and other folks to rank order those parcels. And I've looked at neighboring towns, I think they all do that. In Acton, it's sort of interesting, they look at all open space parcels completely, not just Chapter 61 parcels. In fact, they have 4 pages of parcels listed, and they have them rank ordered. And what they do is try to look at the different interests that might be for the open space. They have the Recreation Committee look at it, they have a Conservation Group look at, then they look at are there unusual features of that property, and they allow people to give up to 10 points for this. And then they have notes, then they have a cumulative score. So they have some properties that everyone says is of interest, and they have 10 across all ways, and has a 30 down to Superfund site W.R. Graceland, no one wants, that has 0 across the way. But it's 4 pages. And in the past open space reports, we have had a listing in the appendix of the Chapter 61 properties. It seems to be only 4 pages total of everything, and there's 1 summary map. So looking at Chapter 61, looking at the priority and interest of protecting the land is something that should be done. And actually probably a little bit more than that.
Could I ask a question about that? Because one of the concerns that we had, and we were looking for, I mean, at some level it would be helpful to have a prioritized list of properties that we should be buying, if that sort of guidance is something that we can, that can be crafted. We've heard the concern expressed that if you put a list out, then your whatever's at the top of the list is suddenly worth more, and is sending a signal to Ray in the back that who represents a number of the property owners that we deal with, that we might not want to tip our hand of what's most important.
Right.
So I'm interested if there are other, if other towns' plans actually do prioritize, that's helpful.
They do. I think historically, what you cited has been a concern, but I think in this town in particular, in this open space, there's a lot of competition for it, and it's nice to know up front what the interests are, and is one more of interest to conservation, so more of interest for recreation. So, yeah, historically, that's been the case. People haven't wanted to show their hand of what they have the interest in. But I think as things get developed and there's less land around, we really have to prioritize.
Yeah.
And this is a message that's been hearing from the Finance Committee, I think, from this board too. And even from the conservation perspective, it's worthwhile making it obvious whether you want to protect some land or not.
But following up on Keith's point, and actually, endorsing most of what you're saying, Don, we talked before, back in June, about trying to get to the same place with, by being a little more obtuse, by listing the areas of town you're interested in, or the sorts of qualities the properties have, active farming on, outside the downtown area, whatever. You can go a long way toward setting your priorities without naming names. And that becomes helpful too when we're in a position such as we are right now, where we have properties, on Whitcomb Avenue that are, before us, or Boxborough Road, and yet do we act on them because they're before us now, or do we wait because we know we've got, a higher priority attached to farmland?
Yeah, every time Rick brings me another parcel, I want to.
If nothing else, Rick needs a priority list.
Yeah,
all right?
Rick, get your priorities. So
You're looking at it.
he never met a piece of open space he didn't like.
Actually, it isn't true. You look at the orchard development where it was poorly planned, it was 14 acres left as open space development. We looked at from the Conservation Trust, and we thought it was going to fail as far as being viable for salamanders and the species there, and we rejected it as for a conservation restriction. Mass Audubon rejected it for the same reasons. Sudbury Valley trustees rejected it. People do use certain rules and look at, and I think it may be helpful to look at things like this and say, okay, this isn't going to be protected, this isn't of interest, and you can compare things with another. Certainly, if you institute transfer development rights, say the way Groton has, and as has been mentioned over and over again, that it might be useful in this case, what typically happens is you go to a list like that and decide where that, either the finances or that protection should be transferred to. And if you have a prioritized list, it can help. You can prioritize it and then put it in general buckets. And when you save land, it's usually because it's connected to something else, and there's usually more than one solution. So, yeah, I understand what you're saying. I think historically that's been the case, but times have changed. And if you look at open space reports of all the towns surrounding us, you'll see otherwise. Anyway, that's just a comment there. I was also surprised on the, I've just looked at different parts. I was noticing for the development, the subdivisions, makes us look like we're a sleepy town. There's no mention of the 200-unit 40B. Maybe that isn't officially a subdivision. But I think there needs to be some citing of that, as, that is a lot of pressure that's on the town. So anyway, those are just two comments I had just from quickly scanning it, but having a paper copy allows one to look at it in a little more detail and help along. But nonetheless, it seems to be a good draft document. It meets the need, I think, for what we're hoping for this 13th, July 13th, Wednesday.
Very good. Thank you. Any other public or anything you guys want to respond to that? Any comments or? Okay. We have someone in the back. Name and address, please.
Hi, Ray Lyons. My office, I'm an attorney. My office is in Harvard. And thank you, Keith, for mentioning. I'm a conservation attorney. I help private landowners across the state put together deals to preserve their property when it makes sense to do so. I'm standing here just for one little notation in your open space plan. I noticed that you want to link lands that are owned by the town of Littleton and the Littleton Conservation Trust and others. One of the most significant others that I'd love to see you name by name is the New England Forestry Foundation. One of the nicest partnerships I've ever seen happen between the town and a conservation organization happened right here. New England Forestry Foundation is very pleased to be here in Littleton. There's all sorts of very exciting things that are happening there that are affecting forestry across New England.
We've partnered with them very successfully in the past.
And just if you could make a little notation in there, not for Wednesday, but for Sunday before you get to the final draft. Groton lost New England Forestry Foundation and you gained them. And I think Littleton is so much better off for it. So thank you.
Thank you.
And there may be others that come along, nonprofit.
Okay, very good. Any other comments? Board members, I'll start with you again, Mr. Davis.
Well, one of the edits that I made prior to tonight was on the actions, list of 9 actions on the map. And it's kind of in line with part of what Mr. McGiver was saying. Number 2, purchase open space and farmland not mapped. Maybe just include, and this certainly could be an edit down the road, but chapter 61 lands. I know that you have the map of the chapter lands, but just spell it out in the actions, I think, and that's more likely to stay at the forefront. It's the only thing that I have at this point that is glaring. There's certainly some things that I think that with a little more time to look at it, I think we can, for the purposes of moving forward and getting something in the state's hands, I think this will serve that purpose, and thank you very much for the efforts in getting this to us. But I think that given some more time amongst ourselves, I think we can tweak it a bit.
Yep. Okay, very good. Mr. Glavy?
For now, I'm more than happy to go forward with the document as is and appreciate your work. I will reiterate the point that's come up somewhat in discussion, that I think the most important thing we can either add here or use in conjunction with this is a prioritization that has a process as well, so that it'll help in 2 ways. One is when things land in your lap, you can better assess them in context. And 2, if we want to be proactive about going forward on things, then I think we need some guidance on that too.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the prioritization that I see in the list was from the March meeting, right? That looks like that was the order.
I mean, prioritization of types of parcels.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, among competing particular open space properties, which ones should we go after in any particular order? Because at the end of the day, we don't have the funds to go after even more than a few. So whatever bubbles up to the top has really got to satisfy us.
And that also leads to a topic that Dawn touched on, is that, you know, our only means of protecting them isn't just an outright purchase, you know? There are a lot of options, and you can expand the number of properties you can impact if you do things like transfer development rights, or, you know, partner with other groups to, you know, or even partner with use our overlay district zoning to allow people to build on parts of properties and protect other parts of it. That level of creativity ought to be, you know, on the table.
Yeah, I'd just like to add to the discussion of whether you should name properties that probably in this day and age, if anyone wants to find out, it's easy enough to find out. There are rumors that fly, and there are different committees, and you can go, and I don't think that it makes much sense to feel the secret what our priorities are.
Very good. Mr. Carr?
Thank you. Again, I echo the concerns of the other board members. I think that as Mr. MacGyver said too, having the 61A and having all those priorities listed so that not only this board, but the town can make decisions, and have that input as you hold other public hearings to develop this priority list. But listen to CONSCOM, the trust, and let them, hey, if we had a wish list, here's our wish list, and kind of incorporate the two and let the town decide. In Park and Rec, yep. But good job, thank you.
Joe?
Just want to take the opportunity to thank you, because people don't realize when we get this little document here, how much time and effort's put into it. And I've been in those committees before, and I realize that sometimes people just don't sit down and say, that took you 9 months of work and coming all the time, so I appreciate that. And jumping on what Mr. Carr said, too, the 61 properties of Linda being so important if something should ever change, because that could change the balance of what we look at in Littleton, right along some of the main roads. So it's good to have that map. Thank you.
Very good. Before, I'll just give last comments, but I think, Chris, you may have had your hand up, but I missed you.
I just wanted to say that I think you just have to prioritize what properties you want the most. Because if you don't do that, you don't have a list together of some sort, your options are kind of limited, because especially with the laws, and if you don't have any particular property in line and where it sits in town and all the the details of it, I think your options as to what we can do with the laws and protection or whatever like that is limited. So I think you really have to prioritize in some way the list.
Yeah, that makes sense, and I can hear Roland Gibson, if he's still out there somewhere, what is the process? So, not only the list, how do you get to the list? What is the process for figuring out the priorities? So I'd echo that. Just a couple quick comments from my side, and then I would look for a motion. I have to echo, great job. You guys have done really good work. Public hearing sessions or public input were really good. We heard if people have further input, they can send that to our town administrator. He will filter that in to your committee. I know I saw tonight the LNA, Anna, was actually saying, hey, let's get to the selectmen meeting and get there to provide input. So now we can just let them know there's a process for that. The door's not shut. This wasn't your only opportunity. So that's fantastic. And I agree with the 61A prioritization comments. Totally agree. Okay, with that being said, look for a motion.
I'd first make a motion to close the public hearing.
That's a good one.
Second.
So moved. No, I did second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, we have to agree on that one, sorry.
All right, so I'll move that the Board of Selectmen vote to submit to the Massachusetts Division of Conservation Services the proposed open space recreation plan prepared by Open Space and Recreation Plan Implementation Committee with assistance from Metropolitan Area Planning Council.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice
Great
job.
job.
Good job.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
There you go. And we are just on time to open our next public hearing. Would you do me the favor?
Yes, I will. The Littleton Board of Selectmen will conduct a public hearing on Monday, July 11, 2016, at 8 p.m. in Littleton Town Offices, Room 103, 37 Shattuck Street, Littleton, Mass. 01460. Act on all alcoholic restaurant license application under Mass General Law, Chapter 138, subsection 12, and common particular license application as submitted by Renato Valentin, manager of I hope I didn't, all right, sorry about that. Manager of Tavern in the Square, Littleton, Mass. LLC, doing business as Tavern in the Square, for the property located at 495 Great Road, AKA 810 Constitution Ave, Littleton, Mass., and known as The Point, a mixed-use development comprising 7 lots of approximately 90.27 acres of land shown as parcels 1-1, 1-2, 1-3, 1-4, 1-5, 1-6, and 1-7 on Assessors Map. The applicant is seeking approval for the sale of all alcoholic beverages Monday through Sunday from 11 a.m. to 1 a.m. on the first floor only of the premises described as a 2-story building, approximately 10,169 square feet. The area sought to be licensed consists of 1 indoor dining area with a bar, 2 outdoor bar dining areas, 1 indoor raised dining area, and 1 outdoor patio dining area with lounge area and bar at 495 Great Road, AKA 810 Constitution Ave, Littleton, Mass. Assessors Map 18, parcel 1 through 4. Comments therein may be submitted in writing to the Selectmen, Town Administrator's Office, 37 Shattuck Street, Littleton, Mass. 01460 by noon, Friday, July 8, 2016, or in person at the hearing. Littleton Board of Selectmen, Melissa Hebert, Chairwoman.
Thank you. This is, depending on the day, I'm in. Okay, how about you guys introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your project, which is exciting for our town.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Karen Simeo, McDermott, Quilty, and Miller. I'm counsel to the applicant. To my right is Mr. Stephen D'Souza, who is one of the owners, when you look at the ownership chart. And to his right is Mr. Renato Valentin, who is the proposed manager of record. And with your permission, I'll just say a couple of words about the application in general, and then I know Mr. D'Souza has some comments that he would like to add. As excited as the town is to have this operation here, we are very excited to come to the town. I know that the applications at this point for the ABCC are huge and full of information, but a couple of the parallels that we would like to draw up front, of course, relate to the concepts in both Northborough and Burlington, as very much what we would like to do here in Littleton. It is a family-oriented restaurant setting, and it's something that we feel there is a need for in the town, and that need, we believe, comes from comments that we've heard over the years in selecting the next location. I also want to emphasize that although there's a long list of these locations that you've seen in the package, this is not any type of a franchise operation. This continues to be 3 gentlemen. Mr. Akari couldn't be here today, but 3 local gentlemen who started this business and continue to grow this business. And we feel pretty strongly that that's part of the reason for the success, is that one of them is in these locations every day. There's constant training and retraining of staff. It's not, and no offense to larger corporations or franchise organizations, but it allows for more of a hands-on approach when it continues to be the same 3 gentlemen that sort of conceived this idea and have been really fortunate in it being received so positively in the Commonwealth. Administratively, I would like to just note that on the Sunday hours, we would like to request, if the board's amenable to it, a 10 a.m. open only on Sundays, because we do brunch at our other locations. And so to the extent that the board is open and amenable to that, we would make that request. I would also like to just speak briefly about a little bit about training. And I do work throughout the Commonwealth for similar clients, and I can tell you that it's not often that we have clients that tips, train, and certify all of their employees. We take alcohol service very seriously, and the training of our staff, both in-house but also with that third-party outlet, very seriously. Mr. D'Souza and I met with the chief and the deputy chief of police. We're really excited to come to town. I know that you'll hear some comments from them. And part of this success we feel, in coming into a new community, is really working hand in hand with that community. And that includes everyone from neighbors to the board to the police department. And we very much want to become a part of the community and work with the community for a greater and long-term success in Littleton. So that being said, I'll hand it over to Stephen.
Hi. It's not really much I can say that Karen didn't say herself. Yeah, we're three local guys. I mean, we both started
Where are you
back.
from?
I'm from Somerville, Massachusetts. He's from Malden. Other partners from South Boston. We started the company back in 2004, and we started off a little differently than it's evolved to. It's evolved into a family restaurant that we're doing now. We're old, so this is how we go with our kids. And we've been really fortunate to get in some different communities. We started out in Boston, and just it wasn't really where we want to be anymore. We want to get in some of these local towns. We work really, really closely with the towns. We do volunteer Thanksgiving dinners throughout 3 of our organizations. We have different sponsorships amongst local youth groups. So I think the difference, what Karen said with us, is I worked for a corporate chain, many years ago, and the people making the decisions and having the responsibility are in some office, some faraway place like Dallas, and that's not us. We're there all the time. I work 6 days a week. Renata works 6 days a week, and most of it is, not the hardworking stuff anymore, but it's actually working with the people of the town and putting together different things to help us both out. We love Littleton. I know the guys over at Great Road. I know them for a while, and I think we'll be a great addition to that location.
Very good.
Outstanding.
Any comments from your side?
I'm good, I think they see.
Okay. Okay, before I get comments from you, Chief, which is where I'm headed next, two things, just maybe some quick comments from my side. So the things that you have mentioned, we have shared values. Obviously, our community's safety, security, and family is number one to this board in this town. So I'm glad to hear you mention that. We take it very seriously. Keith, did we get any comments written in?
No, only from the police department.
Okay, well then. Chief King, could you give us an update on your?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We did meet, obviously starting the applications. There were some violations at a previous location that we wanted to discuss. The discussion revolved around number one. It's where they had the issues back 3 or 4 years ago. It's a completely different facility than what's coming to Littleton. It's more of a, for lack of a better term, it's in the middle of College City, and it's more of an entertainment venue than it is a family restaurant. I've talked to the chiefs in Northborough and Burlington. They've had no issues whatsoever with those establishments. It was really good because we were able to exchange business cards. I was told if anything we need as far as, anything we need, just call. We told them we'd introduce them to the liquor enforcement agents. They guaranteed the training, which we all, believe is, important for any kind of liquor serving establishment in our community. And I'm very confident that they'll work well with us all. They haven't had any violations in the last, 3 to 4 years. Even out of there, they told me, once they realized they had a problem, they took steps to take care of that problem, management changes and other things in that one, the one facility. So they were reactive to the issue, and that's, I guess, anyone can make a mistake. And as long as you learn from it and move forward, which they did, so I'm very happy.
Satisfied. Very good. Thank you for that update, Chief. Okay, board members. Mr. Knox, I'll randomly start with you this time. Do you have any, keep you all on your toes, any comments, questions?
How many total units do you own?
Total, we have 11 right now.
You have 11?
There's 9 Tavern in the Squares, 2 other units we operate under a different brand name. But those are older units, and we continue with Tavern in the Square.
Okay. I've been in your one in Porter Square.
Yep, that's our second unit, actually, yeah.
And actually, it's very impressed with everything that went on there.
Look at you, city traveler.
Now I could talk to
Just
you. Go in there,
passing
but
through.
my son lived down in that area, and they.
Went past Acton, I'm awful proud of you. Past the circle?
I forgot my questions now. I know where the building's located, but I'm looking at the drawing here. Are you on the bottom floor or this higher part?
We're on the bottom.
You're on the bottom?
Yes.
Going right up Constitution Ave, you're gonna be the end?
Yes.
Okay. You can come back to me, I did forgot my train.
I apologize.
One more trip around the Rotary.
Mr. Carr, do you have any comments or questions?
Just a few comments. So as Chief said, you had some previous violations. lessons learned. Tell us a little bit about, your learning experience through these violations.
So when we started out back in 2004, we were smaller facilities, 4,000 square feet. We started as a local sports bar, restaurant. When we went into this Alston location, it was a little bit different than we expected. The sheer size of it alone holds over 600 people, and it's in the middle of college territory. So it became a little challenging with the youth that were coming out not until 10:30, 11 o'clock. It became somewhat of an entertainment venue as opposed to what we had tried to make it. We actually brought in a security specialist to train our personnel how to handle these situations. We actually hired a retired police chief who would come and work the door Friday and Saturday nights, Jack as a liaison. And after that one, we completely changed our model and said, we don't want to deal with these headaches anymore. It's too much work. It's too tiring. We became a full-service restaurant. No DJs, no entertainment. That's the last venue that had that type of model, and that's what we continued to open throughout Burlington and Northborough, and now we're all about a month ago. So it was, the demographic and the location was more than we expected. It's all college kids, and we push for the families, and we only get them on Sundays for brunch. Other than that, it's the late night. But since 2013, through training and through better management, we've had no issues whatsoever.
Congratulations.
And if I could just add to that.
Sure.
As you all know, the ABCC, and this is really for the record and people at home who may not be familiar, the ABCC requires that anyone who has any ownership interest in anything disclose the disciplinary actions. So the list, of course, includes, for Mr. Akari, some locations that he was a sheer investor in, not an operator in, and so I always like to clarify that. When you actually look at these three gentlemen owning 11 units to the point, and look at the number of violations, well, we want a 0 record, we know nobody is perfect, and so we're really happy that we've been able to go for a 3-year span with 11 units with no violations in that period, which is always the goal. But some of those other items listed there are not these 3 owners as operators, but investment interests that needed to be disclosed.
Gotcha. We appreciate that. Don't be afraid to come for entertainment. We don't mind having, slight entertainment at the restaurants in town. It's always good to change things up, so don't be afraid to do that.
Jim's been taking guitar lessons. I've got a great voice.
Yeah, our first booking, nice.
No. And I couldn't.
Generating.
I couldn't carry a tune to. Anyways, so the other point I want to bring up is, Littleton's got some great farms. So we would appreciate, and I know the farmers would, if you go local. Take a look around, take a right out of your parking lot, and you'll see some fantastic farms down there, farm stands. That's community, that's part of our community too. So all these restaurants coming up, we say the same thing. Take a right out your driveway, see what you can do for some of the local farmers, and would appreciate that, and welcome to town.
Very good. Mr. DeCoste?
I'm going to sing back up for Jimmy. I've been to the Burlington restaurant, and I've got 5 kids, so it fits my needs quite well. It's a good spot to meet if you want to meet, professionally for a bite to eat with some folks. And like you said, on Sunday brunches, that's good to meet folks there too. And we look forward to the opportunity to have a place, especially for a brunch type location. And Joey's from New York.
He is.
How'd you guys let him in?
What's that?
You guys let him into the Circle of Trust?
He started the Circle of Trust.
No, I echo, I'm glad Jimmy mentioned the farms, because we do try to make sure that we try to get any businesses that come into town to try to support the businesses that are in town.
Well, that's the great thing of us not being corporately owned. We make decisions based on each community for each restaurant. There's no standardization across any. We do a little thing different in every town we're in. So
I'm intrigued by the whole Thanksgiving dinner thing. I used to do some stuff in Somerville and in Charlestown. So
we do 3 locations right now: Salem, Alston, and Cambridge, and over 1,500 people this year. We did.
Awesome.
So.
Good for you.
Yeah, that's great. I'm good, thank you.
Very good.
Good luck.
Absolutely.
I don't have much additional to add, so I'll just reiterate, pleased to buy local, to hire local, to get locally engaged, and I'm happy to hear that's the direction that you I'd like to go in. I haven't been to any of your other facilities. Look forward to this. Look forward to having a place in town that'll serve brunch. And, we haven't had much comment here, but, the 1 o'clock license, that, I'm not afraid of that. I just, I think there's a population that is served by that too. People coming home late from work, people coming out of late meetings, people who work in the restaurant field, and the hour of the night is not as important as how well you manage yourselves, and you're not abutting a residential neighborhood, and you get the police station right across the street. So I think we're pretely well covered
Downhill,
on
too.
that. So I just welcome you to town.
Okay, I got one more comment then. Just, I keep saying, take a right out of your driveway. The town owns a great orchard in town that's leased. You take a left. It's about 3 miles up the road.
Down behind the lake and they go.
For any type of stone fruit, apples or anything, the best around.
Absolutely.
No pressure.
Yeah.
We always see,
Samples of everything.
Board, any issues with the request to start at 10 a.m. on Sundays?
Not here. Chief's good with it?
Chief? Okay, I don't have anything new to offer. I'd echo what everyone said, welcome, we're excited to have you, like I already said. I don't need to reiterate the farms thing, but, farms. Okay, so, with that being said, I'd look for a motion.
all right, I'll move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve applications of Tavern in the Square, Littleton LLC, Renato Valentin, manager doing business as Tavern in the Square at 810 Constitution Ave, The Point. 1, for an all-alcoholic restaurant license under Mass General Law, Chapter 138, subsection 12, for the sale of alcoholic beverages Monday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 1 a.m., and Sunday from 10 a.m. to 1 a.m. at the premises described as two-story building, approximately 10,169 square feet, consisting of 1 indoor dining area with bar, 2 indoor dining areas, 1 indoor raised dining area, 1 outdoor patio dining area with a lounge area and bar, with issuance of said license to be subject to ABCC approval and passing all local inspections, and 2, a common particular under Mass General Law, Chapter 140, Section 6, license for the same premises.
Just a quick amendment before we second that.
Go ahead.
Just on the times, Monday through Sunday from 11 a.m. to 1 a.m.
Yep.
Sundays at 10 a.m., right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Did you pull that in?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Come on.
I was hung up on you not saying all alcoholic. You just edit that, so it says all alcoholic, all.
You got it, you
Got it,
You
Jim?
get there,
He's been
buddy.
drinking.
That's why Jimmy reads them.
I really want her.
Looking for a
Don't worry
second.
about it.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
We'll be down to see you.
Yep, let us know on the ribbon cutting. Love those.
What's the target date?
October.
October.
Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along, and we are basically on time. So well done. Okay, we have 6 different items and 30 minutes for them. So, we got 5 minutes an item here, basically.
Look at you.
Yeah.
Go.
Keep us on track.
Whiz.
Let's see what we can do here. All right, so first one up, Mill Pond Restoration, something we've all been looking forward to in our lifetimes.
We've heard back from the Army Corps of Engineers about next steps to proceed with the project. Since the time that our town meeting voted to appropriate funds and authorize us to proceed with the feasibility study, that was the trigger for the Army Corps to, I guess, sharpen their pencils in estimating what the feasibility study would cost. So while we went to town meeting with an idea that our local share for the feasibility study would be $67,500, the revised number that the feds have given to us now is $87,000. That's an additional $19,500 that would need to be, that is currently projected as what our local share would be. In order to be able to and the goal is to be able to grab the $2 million in federal funds that's set aside for the project, should the feasibility study indicate that the project itself should proceed. So where we're at right now is that that the board is asked to express its intent to execute the feasibility cost share agreement, the FCSA, with the Army Corps of Engineers. It would be in the amount that we have on the table, which is $67,500 for now. But to express our intent to go back to town meeting and get another $19,500, because according to the Army Corps, that is what our share would be.
87.
That it would be in total of 87,000. And so that's where we are, that's where we're at right now. Upon completion of the feasibility study, should they proceed should the Army Corps decide to proceed, the town's share is estimated to be $1 million. That hasn't changed. That's the information that we had at town meeting. The plan would be to borrow that amount over 15 years and pay for it out of the Clean Lakes Committee cell tower funds. There is a balance, there is a sufficient balance in the Clean Lakes cell tower fund that when we went to town meeting in November, that we could transfer that additional 19,500. I think if they had given us an estimate in time for town meeting,
We would ask for the whole
we
thing.
would have asked for that amount. We asked for the amount that they told us to ask for, and they've since revised that amount upwards. And so in order to access the federal funds, we need to come up to what their expectation is of what the non-federal partner has to pay. And the Clean Lakes Committee did vote at its meeting last week to recommend that the board so vote to proceed.
Any discussion?
Sure, I have one question. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, I'll go second.
So, you are the senior member, by all means, Mr. Knox.
Go ahead.
Are the feds okay waiting on the 19.5?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Yes, they are. They are not okay with us not signing the agreement until we get the money, because initially I said, well, if you need us to sign an agreement for 87,000, we can't until November. And they said, no, we're signing an agreement for the 67.5 now, but state your intent to go get the remaining money. And those two things together will allow them to continue to.
I'm good with that.
To proceed.
Somewhere along the line, can we get a map? Because this talks about disposal area 1, disposal area 2, and disposal area 3. And I can't figure out which areas of the pond that they're referring to.
Yeah. I have not seen a map in connection with this, so.
Because there is part of that pond that goes way over by Taylor Street, and I think that's what they're referring to as disposal area 3, but I might be wrong. I don't know.
I think the feasibility study will dictate what the map looks like too, right? As soon as they get in poking and prodding
As far as the affected
land and
areas.
stuff like that, so.
Yeah, those determinations will be made.
But it
in the
actually mentions
feasibility
certain
study,
things.
Yeah,
Can you take that to Clean Lakes, Keith, to
sure.
delineate?
I'll ask. Yeah, Corey Godfrey is our
Liaison.
Corey, okay.
contact there, and so here at Light and Water, so.
Since we're talking about maps and delineations, any progress with the Stenstroms?
With,
With the Stenstroms, they own some of the lake area, and if there was the talk about.
oh, yeah, there was a question about whether.
Gifting the land or doing some sort of a.
Let me follow up with town council on that, because it looked like if it were donated for conservation purposes, that we could affect that with a vote of the Conservation Commission and the Selectmen and not have to bring it to town meeting. So we will follow that up.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Good for me. That's all I
Mr.
wanted.
Glavy?
Nope, I'm fine with it.
Me as well, yeah, I mean, hey, we want to get this done, so let's do it. Look for a motion.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to authorize execution of the feasibility cost share agreement with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, subject to approval as to form by town council for federal assistance for Mill Pond Restoration Project with the town of Littleton to continue as non-federal sponsor for said project under Section 206 of the Water Resources Development Act of 1996, as amended with funds of $67,500 due in federal fiscal year 2016 from Article 6 of the May 2nd, 2016 special town meeting, and further stating the town's intent to seek an additional $19,500 in the November 2016 special town meeting as recommended by the Clean Lakes Committee.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Very good. So moved. Moving right along. Relatively administrative item, sealer of weights and measures. Keith was reminding me that, we go through NIMCOG, Northern Middlesex Council of Governments for this service, and nothing unusual.
Several years ago, we didn't have a sealer, and we had to rely on the state to come and do it, which made a lot of our local businesses grumpy, have to wait. So I asked what our neighboring communities do, and as it happens that the regional planning agency based in Lowell, NEMCOG, provides the service for many of its members. And so we've been procuring that service now for a number of years from NEMCOG. And would like to continue to do that, so we have the service
Absolutely.
available. And it's paid for by the fees that are charged.
All right, move that the Board of Selectmen vote to authorize execution of an amendment to the contract with Northern Middlesex Council of Governments, NEMCOG, for sealer and weights and measures services for the town of Littleton in the amount not to exceed $6,000 for fiscal year 2017.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Very good. Okay, now we have a decision to, oh, no, wait, no, not yet. Okay, next is the land grant application for Joyce Williams property, 31 Boxborough Road.
Now that we have a recreation plan.
If the board wishes, it could go into executive session to discuss value of land. We have not had a discussion at the board level now for
That's right.
at least a month or more about the property. We could brief you on the status of negotiations. But I will say that we need not, and we are not looking to consummate a purchase and sales agreement with the seller tonight. I have provided the board an update on where negotiations stand. The immediate issue tonight, though, is again, because Wednesday is the application deadline for land grant, that we'd like to be able to pursue a $400,000 grant for the acquisition of a portion of the Williams property at 31 Boxborough Road. The property we can certainly update publicly on the fact that we had some question about whether the lot, the parcel at 31 Boxborough Road was in fact 60 acres, as it had indicated in the deed. Well, the survey that's been done by the seller indicates it's not 60 acres, it's 47 acres. So that's very helpful information. And also in the conversations that we've had thus far, what's being offered to the town is a 32.25 acre portion of that 47 acre property. We have, the town has commissioned an appraisal, which we received a reserve fund transfer from the finance committee. We got the appraisal report back. We only got it back today, and the number is $1,170,000 for that parcel. And the math is important here because the $400,000 land grant maximum that you can get is that the other figure that's important is that Littleton's reimbursement rate is 58%. So up to a maximum of $400,000. So the main thing that we need to know, and that's based on an appraisal. So the main thing to know is that if our appraiser says that this property is worth $1.17 million, that's greater than 58% percent of a figure that is, 400,000 divided by, as a fraction of 1.170, that we meet the maximum. We max out, the $400,000 would go towards an appraised value of 1.1 million. So for purposes of getting an application in the door, we have the information that's needed. What we don't have, and have not consummated yet, we don't have a purchase and sales agreement between the seller and the town. We do not have the authorizing vote of town meeting, which going into this, we knew we weren't going to get it by this week, that we're looking at the fall town meeting as when we would have the authorizing town meeting vote to acquire the property. So in terms of what our goals are, the immediate goal is to get the application in so we can go after the 400,000. The next goal will be to see whether we can consummate a purchase and sales agreement on the property to our mutual satisfaction, to be able to bring it forward to town meeting. That will require further discussion by the board, and you're entitled to have that discussion in executive session. We don't need to have that discussion in executive session tonight for this vote, unless you would like to. If you feel more comfortable about it and want to have a chance to further discuss it, you can do it. But you don't need to do it tonight in order to take this vote publicly. What you certainly need to do is we will be scheduling some quality time in executive session, if not now, on some future occasion, for the board's guidance on how we should continue to conduct the negotiations. So.
Board, what's your feeling on executive session now, later?
I think we haven't even seen the appraisal yet, so I'd like to see the appraisal we have, along with, the seller's appraisal, and kind of just read through, see what the differences are. I mean, it's good to hear that we now know how much land there is, but I would say let's hold off. Be my opinion to hold off on the executive session, but let's move forward with the land grant, obviously.
Do you agree? Other thoughts, Mr. Knox?
I just maybe this is a question can be asked later on. Does this show any access for us to get to the land?
Access and parking are unresolved issues.
Okay.
No.
I'm with Joe. That was my only question, was whether or not we'd be able to get to it.
And we're on the other two, on the two unresolved, I'm forgetting what the next step was on that, to get them to be resolved.
We have to negotiate.
That's a negotiation, okay. Mr. Glavy?
The only questions I have are to the methodology on arriving at the valuation, so I'd just wait for whenever we do that in executive session.
Okay. Okay, well, then any issue of, to Selectman Carr's recommendation, going forward with at least submitting the application and rescheduling executive, yeah? Good, okay.
And the only suggestion I would make is in the motion that we adopt here, that now that we have an appraised value, that we should cite that in the motion. So I had emailed a proposed motion to, it's.
I don't have it, sorry.
I got one.
Move the Board of Selectmen vote to authorize the submission of a grant application to the Division of Conservation Services under its land acquisitions for natural diversity land program for $400,000 toward the proposed acquisition of a 32.25 acre portion of the 47 acre property at Williams Property at 31 Boxborough Road, map R05-13-0, for open space and conservation purposes with an appraised value of, insert here,
Yep.
$1,170,000.
Second.
So moved and seconded, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Very good.
Great.
So we'll reschedule that executive.
And we will have an executive session at a later date. Great.
All right, moving right along. FY 2016 year-end transfers. We've got two items here. Bonnie, I don't know if you want to give the update on this one.
This is actually a routine administrative function that we do at the end of the year, as allowed under Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 33B. which allows for transfers between different expenditure accounts to close the year-end books. We have just a few expenses this year, which in my estimation attest to the well-running of the department expenses, so I have to throw that out. We do have a few expenses for public building, which in the amount of $11,000, primarily for some elevator repairs that were mandated by the state.
Which elevator was it?
It's the one in the
Like by the
cable
parking-
television.
Oh, cable.
They didn't like the way that was constructed, and they required some additional housing on the outside of it. If you don't make the repairs, they will fine you in the amount that it costs to make the repairs, and they will make them themselves, so it's better off to do them yourself.
Yep.
We had a small transfer between police wages and expenses, so it was self-contained, as a result of the accreditation expenses being a little bit higher than they anticipated. Once the chief was aware of that, he managed the overtime account to be able to absorb that within his own department. Unemployment expenses were running under budget. We typically budget about $200,000 annually for unemployment expense. So we're using that to fund the elevator expense that we incurred. And those are the only transfers.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Yep, thank you. Any questions on this one, guys? Pretty straightforward.
Bonnie says it's so, it's so.
It is so.
Ready?
Ready?
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, subsection 33B, to approve year-end transfers between various line items for fiscal year 2016 budget totaling $13,000, subject to further approval of the Finance Committee.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Very good, thank you, Bonnie.
Thank you.
Okay, Goyesti, Hingston and Company Financial Auditors Contract Extension for 2017 and 2018. Okay, Keith or Bonnie, who wants to give the update on this one?
We would like to continue with our auditing firm for another 2 years. We have not had an increase in their rate since 2011. And we're looking at, it's an additional $1,000 as of fiscal 2017. They're already contracted with us to audit the books for the year, fiscal year just ended, fiscal 2016. So this would put them in place for the 2 years following. We've had a 3-year agreement with them in the past.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I just ask this of either Bonnie or Keith? I just know from other government positions or that it's not uncommon when using an outside accounting firm to every few years rotate in somebody different, so a different set of eyes are looking at things, so it isn't the same people looking at the same numbers in the same way every year. And I have no problem with Justine Hingston. Dick Hingston does a great job from my work here prior as a selectman of the Finance Committee, so it has nothing to do with the auditors, but I just wonder if you have thought that through, whether you have an opinion on that, whether it'd be a good idea periodically to bring in a, kind of another set of eyes to look at things.
I've worked in communities where they will ask periodically every so often to bring a different partner in. So there are 2 partners based on this firm. We could ask, in the next engagement to have, instead of Dick Hingston, Jim Justy to come in and review the books as a matter of course. I'm very comfortable with Dick. I will admit it's not an easy audit. I refer to him as the paper tornado. When he comes in, he tends to toss my office for the few months that he's here. But I'm happy to entertain having Jim come in.
I just wanted to hear your thoughts on it. I mean, I read the audits and I can just see by the comments that they make. I mean, 2 things become clear. Their level of detail unearths some pretty small things, so that's good. It's good that they find them, and it's also good that our only problems are that small. But just, as a general practice, having had that in the back of my mind, that's not a uncommon thing to do to entertain a, periodic outside firm, and if you're comfortable with the way it is now, then fine.
I'm very comfortable in that. Like I said, it's not an easy audit. Dick tends to keep me on course with things that are kind of emerging in the next few years, which I appreciate. It keeps me ahead of the curve and keeps the town kind of in good financial stead. I actually do go out and price check him. I did review Groton, Air, Westford, and Acton as part of this review. I'll just give you an example. Groton, which has a regional school district, they don't have to deal with that. They're at $23,000. Air, also with a regional school district, is $21,000. Westford, which is similar in audit scope, is almost $40,000. And Acton was budgeted for $60, but spent $123. So
That should be audited.
definitely in the, you know, in the range that we need to be at.
Who's auditing
So
that?
just so you know, you're getting
Let's see
value
here.
for your dollar.
North Middlesex, we use them 30,000, so pretty close.
Good.
Great question, Mr. Clavey. Any other comments on this one? Or great research, thank you. No? All right, look for a motion.
All right, I'll do it. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to authorize execution of a contract extension for independent auditing services in the town of Littleton for fiscal year 2017 and 2018 with Gusty, Hingston and Company, certified public accountants of Georgetown, Massachusetts, in the base amount of $28,750 per year, plus up to an additional $7,000 per year, either in any major program audits at $3,500 each, that may be required under the Single Audit Act, or in additional work requested by the town.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very good, thank you. Last item, and if we can do this in 4 minutes, we're on time, but something tells me it might not be that much of a slam dunk. Finance and Administration, Succession Reorganization Plan for Jen Gibbons. Only kidding, only kidding. It's for, for Bonnie. So, or I should say, the department, the finance department, put that way. All right, so we know we needed to, a lot like the gym conversation, rejigger some things here to make sure roles and responsibilities were being balanced, and Bonnie also has a life and sanity and all that good stuff and support. She does a wonderful job, and we want to make sure that, you know, your play is manageable.
If I may?
Absolutely.
So, thank you, Madam Chair. This all started 4 months ago, when there was word that Bonnie was leaving, and myself as chair and Melissa as vice chair sat down with Keith and Bonnie to kind of say, hey, you know, we hear you're leaving town. Why? Is there anything we can do to keep you around, or, you know, do something so that, tell us your concerns of your department. She went through it, and we're unique in the sense of the way our finance team is set up and actually organized. So through that process, we've met a couple, 3, 4 times, 5 times, and this is basically the net product of our discussions with the reorg and succession plan for not only the finance team, but also the town administrator. You know, Keith's not getting any younger, you know. So.
Hey, I can say that.
We need to
I'll be
make.
62 at the end of my current contract.
So we need to make sure that.
Can't say it, but I will.
Yeah. You know, we get our finance team tight and make sure that we continue with our AAA rating, and 2, have some type of succession plan for not only any type of movement within the finance team, but also the administrator position. So.
Great summary. Thank you.
That's all I have.
Fantastic. And I don't know if you guys wanted to go through any of the slides that you have, or what's the best?
Yeah, we very much want this to be the introduction
Okay.
and the beginning of a conversation, because it's, and I have to say, it's probably the most important conversation that we will have this year. Not to understate the importance of another conversation that we had earlier tonight, but that, from my perspective, for the town's long-term health, and even our short-term ability to get all the work done that we need to have done, that we need to make sure that the way that we organize our finance and administration functions. And it's become very clear to me in conversations in recent months that we've had with the current and former chair, and with Bonnie, and with Steve Venuti, that we need to make sure that the finance function is performed to the high degree that we need to have it done. And we are so fortunate to have the leader of our finance team be willing to stay here and work for Littleton if we can have the position focus on finance. It's worth recalling, and it's interesting to me to look back at the Town Government Study Committee report, which was one of the interview questions back in 2007 when I came on board, that the town had spent an awful lot of time crafting the Town Government Study Committee report, and there were two main focal points that I'd want to raise. First is that the report empowered or strengthened the position of town administrator, and giving it more responsibility in day-to-day operations, with the Board of Selectmen relying more on being a policy-setting board and then having your administrator carry out your policy. The other key, and that was recommendation 2A. Recommendation 2B was the creation of a consolidated Department of Municipal Finance, where you took what used to be elected for treasurer and collector, used to be elected positions, and combined all of the finance functions into a single department led by a finance director who was given the title of Assistant Town Administrator for Finance and Budget. And that was done purposely, not only because it needed to be a finance director and where there was a chain of command, someone in charge to run the finance function, but also a recognition in giving it the duties of Assistant Town Administrator, that there be someone who was clearly the second in command for the organization, because there had not been. And whether it be for being able to carry on, should something happen to the administrator, or even in temporary absence, having that it was an important recommendation of the committee that there be a second in command. And I wanted to just mention that the organization of the finance function together did not add staff. There was nothing about the Town Government Study Committee report 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago, that added staff. Rather, it looked to reorganize and to basically to try to get as much done as you could without increasing staff. And boy, has there been an awful lot that's been accomplished in that period of time, and I can certainly go into those, but I wanted to call, and I have highlighted in my memo in the packet, that the committee, even a decade ago, recognized that at some point in the future, as the town grows, the creation of this position, town administrator, and the other position, Assistant Town Administrator for Finance and Budget, may require hiring additional support to better leverage that position. A decade ago, it was recognized that some point's going to come when just moving around and just shifting responsibilities isn't going to be enough, that you're going to need some additional resources. And we've accomplished a lot. We went from a bond rating of A+ to AA and then to AAA. The highest rating, many accomplishments, many things that have been done right, many things the organization has achieved. But in talking with Bonnie and looking at her list of things that need to get done, and seeing that there are a number of things that challenges that face the finance function in the very near future, when you couple those to all of the other things that the Assistant Town Administrator position was assigned, it's more than one person can handle. If we're reaching, we've reached the point where the plate is full, and we have to recognize that we need to address that in an appropriate manner. So the particular proposal that we're putting on the table for your consideration and discussion is to split the Assistant Town Administrator for Finance and Budget into two parts. The Finance and Budget, which would be what Bonnie would do, and then to have an Assistant Town Administrator who does all those other things that are assigned to Bonnie's position currently, as well as, I think we'd have the opportunity to branch out, particularly in purchasing, that Bonnie has diagnosed that if it's one of the areas that we don't get to spend time on now is in a coordinated centralized purchasing for all of the departments, where we would have significant ability to, we think, save money. The school department also not, any better staff than we are to be able to take on centralized purchasing has indicated that they'll gladly participate if we're able to do that. So the key is the recognition that, and Bonnie is a great advocate for others, and she is now a better advocate for herself, and that when Bonnie delivered the news, it was a bad day. Number one, I got some news about my mother's condition, and I got news about Bonnie looking at another community. That was a very bad day for me, and I can fix part of it. I can fix half of that, and I was pleased from our initial discussions with Mr. Carr and with Ms. Ebert and with Bonnie and Steve that we were invited to put together a plan to bring to the board so that we could have a full discussion, so that you would know and the community would know what the needs are in order for us to be able to continue to make all the progress that we're making. And so we put together this package and want to introduce it tonight. There's no vote that's called for, but we want to introduce this and to encourage your careful consideration of this proposal. In terms of funding, the hope would be that we could implement this additional staffing as of January 1st. The incremental cost in this fiscal year would be about $50,000. A similar amount would be needed in the following fiscal year to bring it up to annualize it over a 12-month basis. Bonnie has done some further number crunching, looking at sources of funding. There was additional state aid that was even approved in the budget that the governor signed. There was additional money that went to the schools, about $50,000 that went to the schools over the amount that we thought that they would have back when we approved the budget. And there was additional money that was made available for the general government. For the future, we see increases in projected revenue for meals tax and rooms tax. Some of that kicks in this year. Much more of it will kick in fiscal 2018, and those are recurring revenues. And so we think that we have a way to fund this most needed increase to our management capacity to make progress for the town.
Again, so, having been involved from the start, in my real life, my position I hold, my job, you always tend to look over the people that are close to you. And I think this is the case where, I know for me, sitting on the board for 8 years now, actually my 9th year, I've always looked over because I knew that the finance team was always there. And it was always, okay, the schools, the PD, the fire, we know we need help with the highway, so I won't say them, but, it's time. It's time. To have one person do all your human resources, payroll, bids, day-to-day functions, any type of human resource investigation, it's a lot. And as this town grows, we're gonna need to have more staff and have more interaction with payroll and budgeting and all that comes along with it, but, Bonnie doesn't need to be burnt out.
Yeah.
And she doesn't need to be burnt out, she won't, because she'll just leave.
Yeah.
And this is what I think we're trying to help her out. And again, succession, Mr. Bergman isn't getting any younger. Hopefully, we can bring in the assistant town administrator that can succeed him when he is lucky enough to retire, as we all will someday. Because we know Bonnie's gonna be around a lot longer than him. So, that's all I got. It's one of those things, I think, that we gotta pay attention to those people that are close, and this is just part of it.
Absolutely. Bonnie?
If you don't mind, I don't want anybody to think that I don't love working for the town of Littleton. I do. I'm very invested in the community. My children go to school here. My sister lives here. I'm involved in the community. I'm able to function at the level that I am right now because of the team that I have. Steve Venuti, Ian Essman, and the rest of the finance team are an integral part of how we function. And I'm able to perform at the level that I am because of them. I know that they're looking to retire in the next few years. So when I pick my head up and look around and see what needs to be done, I am terrified of putting myself in a position to fail. So I know I need a system upgrade, which involves general ledger, payroll, a lot of other aspects. I know I need to get my fixed assets up to where they need to be able to accurately account for the town's assets. I look at where we need to be in 5 years, and I know that I can't do that without the team that I have in place. And I need to dedicate the time to develop the staff that I have and develop new staff that I need to bring on. So those are my concerns going forward.
All valid. Yep. Very good. Board members, comments, thoughts? You're giving me the eye. Mr. DeCoste.
Is that an eye? Did I give you an eye?
I have something to say. That's what it said to me.
I did it. I just got a little misty.
I know. We do too.
No, I think Jimmy said it well, and we do look past, and I think we all do it, even at home, it's, we need to appreciate those that are around us that are giving us their blood, sweat, and tears.
Yep.
And we need to make sure that, not only by patting people on the back, but make sure that they're taken care of and given the resources they need to be given. So we've definitely learned that tonight, and we need to be cognizant of that, and give them the opportunity to succeed, not to fail.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Mr. Bladen?
Well, this is a lot that's been basically available to us since, whatever it was, 4 o'clock Friday afternoon. And I find it odd that something, as Keith said, is the most important thing we'll be dealing with this year, has been in the works for months. And in the 2.5 months I've been on the board, it's never been discussed once publicly, and for the several months before that, while I was on the Finance Committee and coming to the Selectmen meetings, it hasn't been worked. So here we got a fully fleshed out proposal that lands with everything right down to, how we're gonna divert the funding sources for it, but there hasn't been any prior discussion of this being a priority, and I still haven't made the connection between the problem and the perceived problem and the perceived solution. And I see that there's a couple of job descriptions that are included here, but it looks to be that those are new job descriptions for the proposed positions. I think a good place to start would be with the job descriptions for the existing administrator and assistant administrator position. I have some familiarity with how this has evolved. The first warrant article that proposed a finance director, finance department was my article. It was oddly enough defeated at town meeting largely because members of the Finance Committee feared a loss of territory, and it narrowly lost. So to recover it, we created a government reorg committee, which asked Joe to chair, and that came out with the ultimate proposal that Keith alluded to. All that is true, but I don't know how that gets us to a point where we all of a sudden are adding another $93,000 mid-level manager. Is that the solution to every problem around here? I mean, I think if the expectation is that we're going to need to deal with this one with time, then I'm certainly on board with that. But I think a place to start would be with the job descriptions for the existing management team and see where it is we've gone astray from that and why this might be a solution to it and what else might be a solution to it.
And Bonnie, maybe you could comment a little bit on the process that you went through, because I know that that is where you started. And I mean, you're fair point, we're hearing it all here now together for the first time, but maybe you could shed some light on the thought processes.
Sure. In looking at a lot of the tasks that are in the job descriptions and not in the job descriptions, a lot of the duties that I'm doing are not named in any job description, but they need to be done. There are things like investigations for human resource issues or any employee issues, disciplinary issues. It tends to be that I get them when they become a problem.
I don't dispute the fact that you get stuff dumped in your lap that you shouldn't be doing and that you end up doing it well. What I'd kind of like to see is what's in the job description, because at one point in time that seemed adequate to address a range of issues, administrative and budgetary.
I would say that I would tend to agree and not. I would offer that for probably the last 8 years that I've been here, most of the time-consuming issues are not named in any job description.
Yeah, well, that's I say. That's what
So
I'd
I
like to
think
see. I'd like to see the job descriptions and start there.
Yep. And I think it was a good exercise to go through that personally, because I looked at it and I thought, wow, a lot of this stuff isn't named anywhere in any of the positions that are currently held. So, and they're important duties because they mean, potential litigation for the town. They need to be addressed. They can't be just pushed off to the side. They can't not be dealt with. They need to be dealt with. They need to be dealt with in a careful manner. So I would argue that somebody needs to be assigned to that.
I'd just like to respond to Paul's saying, this is the first time you see it. We have to start somewhere. So I think the general discussions between the chair and the vice chair with the affected staff kind of kicked this off. And it's been 4 months in the making, trying to get to this point where we're at. So, as Keith said, this is a kickoff discussion that we're having tonight.
But as you just said, this has been 4 months in the making, and this is a fully formed proposal.
It's not an easy document to put together.
But we've had,
There's nothing you can just blink of an eye and come up with.
6 or 8 meetings, and there's never once been a mention of that this was in the works.
Hasn't been on the agenda.
Right.
Okay. I mean, again, the document finally is done by staff, and it's brought before us.
Well, we get the open space plan, it's like, well, we're working on it, we're updating it, we had the meeting here, had a meeting there, and then, okay, we're taking a look at a draft of it, and...
But there was a time when they had their first meeting, and they had their first proposal.
Okay.
And I would also offer that my initial conversation with the board was right around the annual town meeting in May, beginning of May.
Crazy time.
So it's really just been since then. And my concern was to bring it forward and have some information. So it took me some time. I'm in the middle of the year-end close to kind of gather that information with Keith's help and some of my staff. So some of that lies on my shoulders.
But the written proposals weren't put together before last week.
Well, they dated last week.
Well, the written information that you have, my memo, Bonnie's memo weren't written until last week. We couldn't have given, in fact, mine wasn't even written as of Thursday night. And felt I needed to do the best that I could to put into words what what the ideas are that we have, and Bonnie wrote her memo on Thursday, so they're hot off the press.
Okay, well, I mean, I'll take Jim at his word that this has been going on for 4 months, it just hasn't become a topic of discussion at the board, so.
May.
This is the first one.
My
Okay, 3
apologies,
months.
3 months. You know.
I think too, it was I don't want to use the wrong word here, but a feeling of imminent doom to not lose Bonnie as well and do our homework around that, to come up with something.
That's fine, but if it's so gosh darn important, you think it would have bubbled up somewhere.
Okay. Mr. Knox?
Right. It's a document that we're starting from right now, and going by what Paul said and what Keith had said, when the Town Government Study Committee looked at this 10 years ago, we knew somewhere along the line that something would be needed because the town was going to grow and the number of things we deal with grow. What I'd love to find out from Bonnie is a list of all those things that are thrown at you that aren't listed, so that can be in here. And I looked at some of the charts here too. For me, I want to fully understand how these things are broken down too. So, I mean, like you said, Paul, it was something that we just had, but I still, in my opinion, I knew something had to be done, but I just looked at it as, okay, here we go. We're going to start with it and see what's needed and take further examination.
But if the problem is, as perceived, the job descriptions of the town administrator and assistant town administrator currently don't cover a number of activities, well, let's start with those job descriptions, but they're not here.
But that's why I said, maybe we should have that list of all the things that are being thrown there, and so we have full understanding of the workload and what has to be done, and go from there. Is that the end of the meeting? Certainly.
Meeting's over.
Okay.
Fries are done.
Need a list of all the activities. So, yeah, and so kind of current, whatever, everything's going on, then, yeah, okay, great. So we can schedule another update and discussion on this and bring that information, let the team have time to marinate on it. Anything else the board needs? Start with that. Okay. All right. There's
Just
no.
interrupt real quickly.
Sure.
Mr. Hinckley, I would ask that you be respectful when you're here. You spoke about being put on a blacklist. Your behavior tonight may warrant some members of this board putting you at least on a gray list. So I'd ask that you be respectful, laughing at comments that were made by the board members
Wasn't laughing at that.
and making comments under your breath. It's not appreciated. So if you're asking why people may not want you on this or that, those types of comments are not appreciated and they won't be tolerated.
I'm just saying,
Thank you.
someone like
Thank you.
Bonnie's level.
Thank you very much.
Shouldn't be just, shouldn't
Thank you
be
very
this
much.
point Where she, that you're losing her before you finally.
You're out of order.
Chris.
That's it.
Yep.
That's it.
Okay.
That's all it was.
Okay, very good. So we'll move on to 9A. Thank you, Bonnie and Keith, for your work on. Huh? Sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't see you there.
Just a quick question. I thought I heard a comment that there will not be any discussion of land valuation while you're in
Right.
the session.
We're all set, right.
All set?
We'll have a,
Apologies.
yeah, thanks, Ray. Sorry, not good to be clear about that.
Sorry about that. Okay. Now, FY17, other business, FY17 preliminary goals setting exercise. We gotta find a date, time that works for everyone. And to Selectman Glavy's point, we can't put it off very far. We gotta get these goals.
Yeah, we were originally scheduled for Wednesday, and we are posted now for Wednesday at 7:30, but I thought that I had heard at least multiple other problems or issues about that date. I think that maybe next Monday night at 7:30 might be the best use of a Monday night. If Wednesday isn't, I mean, Wednesday, if you've got all five for Wednesday, we can do Wednesday.
Madam Chair, if I might, have I got a deal for you?
It's a good deal.
Since I was the one who, as Keith pointed out, asked that we hold to the date we'd picked for the reasons stated, I kind of went back and reviewed both the matrix of last year's board goals with some additional input from this year. I don't have a quibble with a lot of issues there. If I might, I just want to touch on 3 general areas. If we can have a little discussion on things that I personally think this, for scheduling reasons, need to be dealt with at some level by this board at our remaining meetings in July and August, even if to get the ball moving down the field. And some of the other ones are not as timely, whether they're other board members' priorities or my own, and we could discuss those as late as our meeting on the 25th. But I think a number of things we really need to get on our agendas for upcoming meetings. And they're not new topics, they're old topics. So if you let me run through those. And the upside of that is I would offer that we would not need to meet on Wednesday.
Works. I think I know we're missing Selectmen Coach.
Yeah, you got a meeting anyway, so he doesn't, what the.
I don't have to be there. I can be here.
We have master plan core assessment as well.
So, here's things that we've had discussions about, and I think we would, some are directly tied to potential town, need to get things off the ground for town meeting. There's the whole sewer study thing. We've got a dust gathering report from 2 years back. We should have those people back in here. There were a couple of topics that I think needed to be followed up on. Come up in the campaign, Joe, when you and I were running, people were asking questions. I think it was going around to the, reestablishing what the interest was and how close some of the property owners were willing to sign to make the thing financially viable. Others were just getting some of the questions answered in terms of the standard financing mechanisms for those systems throughout the state. And I'm sorry if I'm forgetting something else, but there's some of those topics that I think we can deal with in the next couple of months to be in a position to potentially put an article before the town at the fall town meeting. And at least give ourselves the chance to make a decision on that by pursuing some of the,
Actionable items.
yeah, the actionable items. Similarly is on the fire station, how we've, I don't think there was probably only one member left of the board, maybe 2, that last voted on the financing plan for that, and what had been hoped for has been firmed since then, although has not been affirmed by this board in a vote, and that is to fund the fire station without an override in the fall. Although I know there's also been a proposal made to fund it with an override that we wouldn't end up using. One way or the other, we need to get that established well in advance of town meeting and have that discussion and rehash those facts. Third one is the Economic Development Committee has made, repeatedly a number of minor recommendations about, things such as getting involved in the, getting more involved on a web presence, getting some marching orders to get out into the public. That burden is on them to come up with the charge, but also to have a staff level contact that they can deal with on minor issues, not just major, policy-making decisions that Keith might be involved in. We've got the library issue. I know you've been very involved with that, Melissa, but there's, the last time we had the discussion here, there were questions up in the air, I raised them anyway, that have we really settled the issue of need, and have we really get concrete answers as to whether or not there's not any viability on the existing location with expansion or improvements. I know they have an informational meeting tomorrow night. I plan on going to that. Chuck, you've devoted a ton of time on the fields issue for Alumni Field. I know that the charge was very specific to that for your committee, and you're aware of that. But the rest of us have an obligation, which we made at town meeting, to come up with, or address at least, a comprehensive view of the field needs that incorporates but doesn't exclude that, comes up with a budgeting scheme that is able to follow so that we can isolate field costs out of the budget so that people can pick it up and look at it and know where it is. And 3, come up with a funding plan for ongoing maintenance. So, we need to get together the parties that would, have to be involved in that, schools, park and rec, highway, et cetera. Financial policies, in the past, this has been the time of year when a couple members of this board, a couple members of the finance committee would get together and do some of those reviews, and I won't get into the list of topics there, but there are a number of them that we could and should address.
So that one's not a kind of a board topic, but it's
no, just to make our appointments, and then engage the finance committee to go off and follow up on that. And then similarly, it came up tonight again with the open space people. We approved that plan. We're not going to look at it again until something lands in our lap, unless we get into the business of adding that next step of doing some prioritization. And it's a great group of people, we should be working with them and the CPC and whoever else and do some of that. So whether that means making board assignments to go off and do some of these things,
Subcommittees or ad hoc.
So, and anything else I had would be new and can wait a month, but those are all kind of like timely things we should be scheduling. That's it.
Okay, this is good. All right, can we just touch on them all real quick first? I just have it.
Yeah, these
in
are my
head.
ideas, so.
Okay, sewer, couldn't agree more. So we can, reach out to Megan and whoever to come in and provide an update. I remember the last time she came in, she kind of gave an update to where they left off and I can't remember really where we went from there, but, so I'm just thinking about positioning and is it the same type of thing, but this time we formulate an action plan as well?
Yeah, I think it starts with kind of revisiting where we were and what is needed before we could have something to bring to town meeting. What
Okay.
questions need to be answered, where are the public's biggest doubts coming from, what were the things that were left open-ended? So,
Okay.
Is the sewer something that gets ahead of is it coming up in the master plan? Is it?
I'm sure it will, but.
I'm just wondering in terms of, like, if you're thinking fall town meeting or you're thinking annual?
Well, my own thought was fall town meeting because all we need right now is an initial, study amount.
I'm almost positive the master plan you're on that committee, aren't you?
Oh, yeah, it has been coming up. It came up came up numerous times at the first meeting we had with the town, and it's also come up, through one of the core assessment groups as well.
Just in terms of, because one of the reasons why we didn't do the sewer is that there was no organized support for the sewer. There was plenty of organized opposition, but there was no organized support group, including no business group.
I'm not unaware of the political component, and that's part of my thinking
So I'm just suggesting that great to have the sewer. I think the sewer is an important economic engine issue that we ought to have on here. The question might be, though, which we can discuss further, what's the best way to bring that issue forward? And
I would say in a town meeting where people are coming out to vote for Field.
Well, or it may be doing that when you've got support. And then the question is, can you line up the support you need for an appropriation? Because we couldn't even get an appropriation through town meeting.
I think, if I might, Paul, I agree that sewer has to be brought up again. I think the fall time might be too quick, because we're gonna have Megan come in here. I know that committee that once existed, although it still exists, a lot of those people don't want to be part of it now, so we're gonna have to reorganize, find out where they were.
We don't need to go back to ground zero with them.
No, I think, but to Joe's point, I think it's get them folks in sewer feasibility study committee is now sewer implementation committee or sewer.
They're gonna need a vote to kind of.
Sewer interest committee. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
This fall, we're gonna have a group that's probably gonna look a lot like this spring's town meeting in attendance, for the very simple reason of the fields.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of the people who.
I guess we gotta figure out what our next steps are too. I mean, we gotta re-engage that group, recharge that group.
This is an odd political discussion. I think there's no, if we can, I would suggest we can move forward, see how far we get, and if we get close to town meeting and we're not ready for it, we're not ready for it.
And we can run it parallel to the master plan committee, master plan.
Oh, yeah. In fact, it's been reiterated multiple times that the master plan committee should not stop anybody's actions until they're done. It's just, it's kind of concurrent with whatever else is going on in town.
Okay, so in terms of
Did
next.
Paul just volunteer for something?
I think he definitely in that list
I'll
somewhere.
volunteer for any of this. I'm just saying we should get, whatever of these things require an agenda time, get them agended, and the ones that require.
So why don't we get back to next Monday? I mean, that's the bottom line. We're talking about to take a vote on, so we can all get our ideas in and get that.
All right,
Okay. I was picking his brain. No, you're right, though. Okay.
So, are we not gonna do it this Wednesday?
Don't need to, and I can do next Monday, that's fine.
Is everyone open on Monday, the 18th?
Monday would be better for me.
Me too. We have the, well, I don't know how long ago, but the master plan core assessment we have on Wednesday.
Yeah.
So we'll
There's
be
also
jumping.
one on governance at 6 o'clock on Monday, but we could meet at 7:30.
Oh, yeah, I want to go to that one as well.
Okay, sheesh.
Yeah.
The core assessments were kind enough to schedule themselves for 6 PM, so that if we need to do something at
Right.
7:30, we can do it, and it would be a one-item agenda.
Yeah.
So, next week, just
So
on the
Just
goal
amend,
setting.
just amend the posting that Diane has currently with a new date. Time.
Right.
7:30.
To do it for
Yeah, okay.
Monday night.
Everyone cool with that? Yeah, all right.
And that would be great too, in terms of if you could.
Yeah, if you want me to, I mean, if we are going to meet
Yeah,
within
if
the
you
week,
wanted
I
to-
could put this in writing and.
Yeah, and then I'll
It'll
put
be-
them into and if I can get information from all 5 of you.
I'll just photocopy this.
I forgot one.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to reschedule its preliminary goal-setting exercise for fiscal year 2017 for Monday, July 18th at 7:30.
Second.
Moving second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Very good, minutes approval.
All right, so we have minutes for our meeting on June 20th, 2016. Any issues with the minutes as written? You were here for
You
some
came in
of
at the
it.
end, didn't you?
You came in at the end.
That's right, yeah. But that was all,
I
executive.
saw your name once in here somewhere. Where is
Oh,
it?
yeah, no, Selectmen, Jessica, join the meeting.
I saw it somewhere.
Well, I just put it in bold, Jen. Oh, here he is.
I'll thank you for that, Jen. All right, hearing no issues, move that we approve the minutes for the Board of Selectmen meeting on Monday, June 20, 2016.
Second.
So moving second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. All right.
Okay, we're on our last item.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 21, subsection A, Clause 3, to convene an executive session to discuss strategy with respect to litigation in the matter of Purcelli versus Town of Littleton, since an open meeting may be detrimental effect on the litigating position of the board, and not to convene an open session thereafter.
Second. Nope, roll call.
Oh, yes, that's right. Mr. Knox?
Aye.
Okay. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very good, we are in executive session.
Just